Chapter 494. Chu Guoxiong was shocked and horrified. He was keenly aware that Tan Xiu seemed to know the condition of the patient's body very well. He could even know the number of white blood cells removed from the patient's body without any instrument to check. What was most inconceivable to him was that not only did Tan Xiu know the number of white blood cells removed, but he could also distinguish between normal white blood cells and those that were easy to evolve and spread. This ability. He's also terrifying, isn't he? Dai Xinyue's beautiful face, on the other hand, had a look of intense worship on it in addition to shock. Septicemia was a very difficult problem to overcome in the entire medical field, yet her master could easily treat it. This was definitely an existence more powerful than a divine doctor. It must be known that, if those so-called divine doctors could completely cure septicemia, the news would have spread out long ago. Even the disciple of this divine doctor was shocked. This showed that even his master, the great divine doctor Gue Jianqiu, would find it difficult to do so. Dai Xinyue recalled what her master just said. He said that she must first increase her knowledge of Chinese medicine so that she would be taught a special treatment method later. She was so happy that she almost cried. Tan Xiu ignored Chu Guoxiong and Dai Xinyue's thoughts. After wiping all the bloodstains on the little girl's body, he looked at Gong Likun and said, "Help her change into clean clothes and let her have a good rest. Also, remember to give her Chinese medicine tomorrow morning and then give her some liquid food to nourish her body." Gong Likun nodded excitedly and said, "I'll do as you say, Divine Dr. Tang." Tan Xiu let out a faint smile and packed up the medicine box. He then turned around and said, "I'm going to treat the patient next door, so I'll take my leave first. See you tomorrow night." "All right. Thank you, Divine Dr. Tang," said Gong Likun gratefully. After leaving the ward, the shock on Chu Guoxiong's face finally disappeared and he curiously asked, "Divine Dr. Tang, are you going to the next ward to treat the patient? What disease does she have?" "Congenital heart disease," answered Tan Xiu. Chu Guoxiong's footsteps came to a halt as he looked at Tan Xiu in disbelief. He gulped down a mouthful of saliva and quickly caught up with him. As he entered the next ward, he hurriedly asked, "Divine Dr. Tang, can the congenital heart disease treatment you mentioned be completely cured?" Tan Xiu smiled and said, "If it was treating leukemia, I wasn't 100% confident. But now, I'm 100% confident in treating congenital heart disease." Chu Guoxiong's heartbeat increased exponentially. At this moment, the way he looked at Tan Xiu had already turned into a celestial being. One should know that treating congenital heart disease was a very troublesome matter. Although there were many cases that could be cured, it was all because the patient's condition was not serious. However, a congenital heart disease that could seek treatment from Tan Xiu was probably very difficult to treat. This kind of thorny congenital heart disease was probably something that many large hospitals and famous cardiologists and professors were helpless about. "What type is Divine Dr. Tang?" Chu Guoxiong hesitated for a moment before asking. "Insufficient blood supply, perforation of the internal organs, and the most important thing is that the heart is small and difficult to develop," said Tan Xiu. "It's not life-threatening for the time being, but if it's delayed, even if Hua Tua and Bien Ke are reborn in the future, they won't be able to reverse the situation." Hiss, Chu Guoxiong sucked in a cold breath after hearing it. He had encountered this kind of situation before, and it was more than once or twice. If it was a simple case of insufficient blood supply and perforation of the internal organs, it could be treated. Some patients with congenital heart disease could gradually recover after the later treatment, but the heart was small and difficult to develop. This was closely related to the patient's constitution, so it was very difficult to treat it. Inside the ward, Li Yunyang and Gu Hui had been waiting eagerly. Upon seeing Tan Xiu's arrival, Li Yunyang immediately looked grateful and greeted him with an excited face, "Divine Dr. Tang, I finally see you again. Thank you for coming to treat my son so late." "Thank you. I've been giving medical services in Star City Chinese Medical Hospital recently. Treating patients and saving people is my job, so you don't need to be so polite," said Tan Xiu. "Have you done the things I asked you to do before?" I've done it. I've met the families of the deceased and compensated them with a large sum of money, said Li Yunyang without hesitation. Also, I've donated a lot of money. I'm ready to wait for my son to gradually recover after your treatment. Then, I'll make a detailed investigation to see what kind of charity work I want to do. But what? Tan Xiu raised his brows and asked. I don't think I need to investigate anymore, said Li Yunyang. Today, I've decided to donate most of my family property to the Star City Chinese Medical Hospitals Foundation. Also, I'll take out a large sum of money to donate to the impoverished areas to help build schools for the children there and provide them with a good learning environment. That's right. Tang Xiu nodded and said, I believe that your good deeds will be rewarded. After saying that, he put the medicine box next to the bed, took out a silver needle from it and said, untie his clothes. I need to perform acupuncture on him. Also, nobody is allowed to disturb me while I'm performing acupuncture treatment. All right. Li Yunyang quickly complied and worked together with his wife, Gu Hui. After taking off Wei Dongdong's clothes, they made him lie on the bed according to Tan Xiu's instructions. Puff, the silver needle entered his body. Tan Xiu quickly controlled his star force and injected it into Wei Dongdong's body. Gradually, it wrapped his heart. Tan Xiu's body had a huge vitality. The reason why he was 100% sure that he could cure Wei Dongdong was that the vitality had a magical curative effect on Wei Dongdong's heart. Even the star force in his body contained a huge life essence. Using it to nourish Wei Dongdong's heart would definitely have a miraculous effect. Sure enough. After more than 10 minutes of infusion, Wei Dongdong's heartbeat became a lot stronger. The small hole visible to the naked eye was also squirming and slowly becoming smaller. An entire hour passed. Tang Xiu stopped injecting his star force. He grabbed Wei Dongdong's ankles and lifted him up. His palms kept patting the muscles and bones of his entire body. His face was slapped dozens of times before he finally slapped the back of his heart a few times. Hiss. Yang sucked in a breath of cold air, and his eyes were filled with fear. Chu Guoxiong was even more dumbfounded and the corners of his mouth twitched a few times. One had to know. Wei Dongdong suffered from congenital heart disease and the small hole in his heart was very prone to bleeding. Once there was a problem with his heart, it would be fatal. Yet, Tang Xiu actually slapped his back. How could this be treating a patient and saving someone? This was clearly murder. However, they thought of Tan Xiu's previous instructions that they must not disturb him. Therefore, despite their uneasiness, they held on to their trust and finally endured it. Tan Xiu slapped Wei Dongdong's back and put him down again. He performed acupuncture again with the same silver needle. However, the next infusion of star force was very short and the amount was also very small. After wrapping his heart with star force, he immediately stopped. It was impossible to treat such a congenital heart disease in one go. However, he only needed to treat it once and the star force left in his body would nourish and repair it. When the star force was consumed, Wei Dongdong's congenital heart disease problem would probably be completely solved. It's done. Tan Xiu pulled out the silver needle with a smile on his face. Divine Dr. Tang, it's done? Asked Li Yunyang incredulously. That's right. It's done. Tan Xiu nodded and smilingly said. However, you need to wait for 2 months. Take him to the hospital for an examination 2 months later. You can call me if you have any other questions, or come to Shanghai University to find me. All right. Thank you, Divine Dr. Tang, said Li Yunyang quickly. No need to thank me. Tan Xiu waved his hand and said, you exchanged your son's life with your actions. However, I still have a request that I hope you can promise me. What is it? Asked Li Yunyang quickly. As long as I can do it, I'll do it even if I have to climb a mountain of swords or plunge into a pot of boiling oil. You don't need to exaggerate. My request is very simple. You must absolutely keep the fact that I cured your son's congenital heart disease a secret, said Tan Xiu with a smile. You can't take your son to the previous hospital for an examination, nor can you find the previous doctor. I don't want the fact that I can completely cure congenital heart disease to be spread out. Yang asked in confusion, why? Isn't this a good thing? I'm afraid it'll be troublesome, said Tan Xiu. Afraid of troublesome? Li Yunyang stared blankly for a moment. Although he was full of puzzlement, he still nodded and gave Tan Xiu his assurance. Chu Guoxiong, who was standing at the side, suddenly said, Divine Dr. Tang, can I take this child's pulse? You don't trust me? Tan Xiu smiled. Chu Guoxiong stared blankly for a moment before he immediately said with an embarrassed smile, It's not that I don't trust you. I'm just shocked by your treatment method, so I want to diagnose this child's physical condition. Tan Xiu made a please gesture and then turned to Dai Xinyue and said, Pack up and get ready to get off work. Also, remember to discuss with your family when you go back and wait for October 8th to arrive in Shanghai. I've already told my family, Master. My parents are very much in favor of me learning medicine from you, said Dai Xinyue with a smile. They even said that they want to invite you to dinner. Tan Xiu waved his hand and said, Forget about the dinner. I have a lot of things to do during the National Day holiday. Let's meet again when we have time later. All right. Dai Xinyue nodded with a smile. Chu Guoxiong grabbed Wei Dongdong's wrist and diagnosed his pulse. Then, he turned to look at Li Yunyang with a strange expression and asked, You're Mr. Wei, right? Are you sure your son has congenital heart disease? Chapter 495. Although he didn't understand why Chu Guoxiong asked this question, he still answered honestly, yes. I've been diagnosed since my son was born. If it weren't for us taking good care of him and even spending a lot of money to hire professional nurses to take care of him, I'm afraid my son wouldn't have been able to live until now. Chu Guoxiong turned his head and looked at Tan Xiu with a forced smile. Divine Dr. Tang, this Chu Guoxiong is convinced. You're not a divine doctor at all. You're simply a god. I just diagnosed this child and found that his heart is beating vigorously. Although his qi and blood are a bit unstable, it doesn't look like a congenital heart disease. Your diagnosis is wrong. The reason why you diagnosed him as a congenital heart disease patient is because he used a special method to keep his heart in a high-speed recovery stage, said Tan Xiu. If you had diagnosed him a few hours later, I'm afraid you would have been able to diagnose his condition. What's going on? Asked Chu Guoxiong with a blank expression. Congenital heart disease is very easy for me to treat, said Tan Xiu. But if I want to cure it completely, I need to let the heart heal and grow. And this process will take about 2 months. That's why I told him to take the child to the hospital for an examination after 2 months. Chu Guoxiong suddenly understood and gave a thumbs up to Tan Xiu, but he didn't know what kind of praises he should say. It was because he felt that any praise given to Tang Xiu would be weak and powerless. Upon hearing Tan Xiu's words, Chu Guoxiong's half-relieved heart immediately calmed down a lot. With an inquiring expression, he asked, Divine Dr. Tang, do we still want to stay here? Do you have too much money to burn? Tan Xiu snappily said. Are you going to waste your money on this? I've treated him, so why are you still staying here? Go back to where you came from and take good care of him. Your son will be healthy 2 months later. Even if your son is lucky, his physical fitness will definitely be far superior to ordinary people in the future. Far superior to ordinary people. Chu Guoxiong didn't have such extravagant expectations. He only hoped that his son could be healthy and he would be satisfied. They left the hospital. Tan Xiu sent Dai Xinyue home and then returned to Southgate Town. To his surprise, his parents hadn't gone to bed yet. Instead, they were chatting with a guest. Elderly, why are you here? Tan Xiu asked curiously with a strange expression on his face. Just now. After he entered the courtyard of the villa, he found that there were more than 10 unidentified men around the villa. When he entered the courtyard, he found 4 burly men in black standing in the courtyard. However, he never expected that Hong Kong's Li Juren would personally come to Star City and even appear at his home this late. Li Juren got up and said with a smile, "Tan Xiu, I originally came to visit you, but I didn't expect to meet your parents, so we chatted first and waited for you to come back. Why didn't you call me?" Tang Xiu touched his nose and smilingly said, "You have my cell number." Li Juren said with a smile, "I know you're busy. Anyway, I have nothing to do these few days, so I came over to discuss some things with you." Tan Xiu nodded. Tang Yunda and Su Lingyun glanced at each other. Then, Tang Yunda said with a smile, "Elderly, you talk to Xiu. We're a bit tired, so we won't bother you anymore." Li Juren nodded with a smile. Tang Yunda looked at Tan Xiu and said, "Xiu, entertain elderly well." "All right." Tan Xiu replied. As Tang Yunda and Su Lingyun went back to their room to rest, Tan Xiu took Li Juren to the study room on the second floor. After brewing some fragrant tea, the duo sat on the sofa. "Elderly, I think you should have something important to discuss with me in Star City, right?" Tan Xiu took out a half-pack of cigarettes and handed one to Li Juren. He lit one himself and took a puff before asking slowly. Li Juren didn't light the cigarette. He held it in his hand for a moment and said, "Tan Xiu, the reason I came to you this time is because I want to ask you for a medicine." "Ask for medicine?" Tan Xiu stared blankly and then asked with a strange expression, "What medicine do you need?" Li Juren slowly said, "When I was young, I was suffering from a chronic illness due to hard labor. It wasn't until I met Boss Gu that my body finally couldn't support the illness. Although my body recovered a lot after recuperation, it's still not as good as a healthy person. In the past, Boss Gu gave me a medicine called marrow cleansing pill. Ever since I took that medicine, the chronic illness that had accumulated for many years was completely cured. Even my body's constitution is much better than that of an ordinary person. However, I'm old now, so I was thinking that if I could get another marrow cleansing pill." Upon hearing Li Juren's words, Tan Xiu immediately understood his thoughts. He nodded and said, "I can indeed refine the marrow cleansing pill, but I need to consume a lot of medicinal herbs. There's no lack of precious herbs." Upon hearing it, Li Juren immediately guaranteed, "Tan Xiu, as long as the medicinal herbs can be bought with money, I can get them no matter how precious they are." Tan Xiu couldn't help laughing and said, "I forgot about your identity. I'm afraid you're so poor that you only have money now. All right, I'll give you a list of medicinal herbs. Send someone to buy the medicinal herbs you need according to the list. Once you've bought all of them, send them to me directly." Upon hearing it, Li Juren was happy and excitedly said, "No problem. Tan Xiu, I owe you a favor. In the future. You don't need to say, 'Owe me a favor.'" Tan Xiu waved his hand and said, "I won't give you the marrow cleansing pill for free. I'll ask you to find more medicinal herbs, so it's mutually beneficial for us." Li Juren stared blankly for a moment before he immediately nodded and smilingly said, "It doesn't matter if it's more. Even if it's 10 times or 100 times more, I'll find a way to get it. After all, the marrow cleansing pill can prolong my life, so I'm using money to buy my life. If it's the first time you take the marrow cleansing pill, it'll help your body the most," said Tan Xiu. "But if it's the second time, the effect won't be that great. All right, I'll check your pulse first." Through some understanding, Li Juren already knew that Tan Xiu was the young divine doctor of Star City Chinese Medical Hospital. Therefore, he quickly got up and came to Tan Xiu's front. He sat next to him and stretched out his wrist. After checking his pulse, Tan Xiu said, "According to your current physical condition, you can live for at most 10 years. If you take the marrow cleansing pill again, it should help you live for another 3 to 7 years. However, your body will be much stronger than your peers during the time you're alive. You can judge how long I can live from my pulse?" asked Li Juren with a blank expression. "Everyone calls me the young divine doctor," said Tan Xiu with a faint smile. Li Juren pondered for a moment before he heavily nodded and said, "All right. Even if I can only live for another 3 to 7 years, it's worth it for me to spend a lot of money to buy those precious medicinal herbs. Tan Xiu, make a list of medicinal herbs. I'll go back and arrange people to search for them. A curved arc was outlined on the corner of Tan Xiu's mouth. A smiling expression climbed up the corner of his eyes as he said, "No hurry. Drink some tea first. As a matter of fact, there are better medicines to prolong your life." Li Juren suddenly stood up. His speed was not something that an old man should be able to achieve. His eyes stared fixedly at Tan Xiu. His breathing became a lot faster at this moment as he quickly asked, "Tan Xiu, do you mean there are better medicines than the marrow cleansing pill?" "Yes. At least it can let you live for more than 10 years, said Tan Xiu with certainty. "What medicine?" asked Li Juren quickly. "Life essence pill," said Tan Xiu. "I need this life essence pill. What medicinal herbs do I need? As long as I can do it, I'll do my best to find it even if I have to pay a huge price." Tan Xiu stretched out a finger and lightly said, 10 billion, plus 3 precious medicinal herbs. If you agree, I can give you the life essence pill in 3 days at most after you give me the money and medicinal herbs. "Money is a small issue," said Li Juren without hesitation. "Which 3 medicinal herbs do you need?" "Millennium Snow Lotus, 500-year-old Polygonum multiflorum, and 500-year-old Flying Guillotine," said Tan Xiu. "I know about the Millennium Snow Lotus and Polygonum multiflorum, but what is this Flying Guillotine? How come I've never heard of it?" "The Flying Guillotine grows in an extremely cold place. It's shaped like a hawthorn and has vine leaves as its companion," said Tan Xiu. "The most important thing is that the place where it grows used to be filled with mountains of corpses, which were born from the blood-soaked soil. I'll draw the Flying Guillotine's appearance later. No matter how difficult it is for me, I'll find a way to get the 3 medicinal herbs you need." Li Juren heavily nodded. "I'll give you 2 months. Tan Xiu said with a smile. "If you can't get it within 2 months, then I can only settle for the second best and give you the marrow cleansing pill." "All right." Li Juren rubbed his hands and a satisfied smile appeared on his face. With his current status, as well as the traces left on his body by the years, money simply had no meaning for him. What he cared about was how long he had left for the rest of his life and whether he was healthy or not. Half an hour later, Li Juren left South Gate Town. A few minutes after he left, Tang Yunda came to Tan Xiu's room and curiously asked, "Xiu, why did Li Juren look for you?" "He's looking for medicine that can prolong his life," said Tan Xiu with a faint smile. "Is Li Juren sick?" asked Tang Yunda with a confused expression. "He's not sick. He just wants to live longer." Tan Xiu shook his head. "It seems that no matter how much power and wealth you have, you still can't avoid the fear of death." Tang Yunda forced a smile. "How was your talk? Do you have a way?" "I do have a way, but the conditions are very harsh," Tan Xiu said with a smile. "If he can find the medicinal herbs I need, I can help him live for a few more years. But if he can't, I'm powerless." Tang Yunda gave a thumbs up and praised, "You're worthy to be my son. Even the famous Li Juren is begging you. Son, this Li Juren is as rich as a country. You must take advantage of this time to make him bleed. Today's monthly votes have increased by 1 rank. Continue with the 3 chapters update. This chapter is a free chapter. Asking for recommendation votes and monthly votes __. Chapter 496. Star City, Rising Dragon Martial School. A searchlight brightly illuminated the martial arts field. In the middle of 2 rows of weapon racks, in the spacious field, Jiang Feng wore a tranquil smile on his face as he looked at Qin Zhizhong, who was dressed in a training suit and looked solemn. With a clear and loud voice, he said, "Brother Qin, although we are exchanging pointers, fists and feet have no eyes. If I inadvertently hurt you during the match, I hope you can forgive me." Qin Zhizhong nodded seriously and said, "I also want to say the same to you, Brother Jiang." I hope you can go all out in the match, because I don't want to have an unfair victory. Ha ha ha, Jiang Feng laughed aloud as a contemptuous expression flashed in his eyes. At the side, the two disciples of Jiang Feng shook their heads and laughed. They looked at Chen Zhizhong with eyes full of contempt. It was because they had seen Chen Zhizhong fight. Although it was a few years ago, they thought that they were not much worse than him at that time. How many years had it been? Yet, he had the guts to come to the Rising Dragon Martial School and compete with his master, a martial arts grandmaster. He even boasted shamelessly and asked his master to go all out. Did he come here to be abused? Chen Zhizhong cupped his fists and said, Brother Jiang, it's easy to capsize a boat if you lower your guard. Especially in a fight between experts, a slight mistake will lead to a crushing defeat. As a martial arts grandmaster, you should understand this truth. So, I hope you can put away all the contempt you have for me and show your true ability to compete with me. Jiang Feng slightly frowned as he carefully observed Chen Zhizhong. The smile on his face completely disappeared and was replaced with a bit of seriousness. He solemnly nodded and said, Since Brother Chen has spoken to this point, then I'm not worthy to be your opponent if I don't go all out. Come on. Let me see how many skills Brother Chen has learned from Tang Xiu and Grandmaster Tang in recent years. Please, Chen Zhizhong spread out his hands and said. Although Jiang Feng was old, his body was still strong and healthy. Coupled with the fact that he had immersed himself in martial arts for most of his life, it could be said that his whole body was full of kung fu. His feet that seemed to be rooted to the ground moved in an instant as he rushed toward Chen Zhizhong with a strange pace. Ba Ji. He moved his feet and clenched his fist. In his early years, Jiang Feng had once been a disciple of a Bajiquan master. These years, he had practiced the Bajiquan to the point of perfection. Therefore, when he made a move, his fists were incomparably ferocious. Chen Zhizhong quietly watched Jiang Feng's movements. Just as Jiang Feng's fist was about to hit his face, Chen Zhizhong's feet twisted in a strange trajectory, and his body spun like a bow. He easily dodged Jiang Feng's fist that he thought would definitely hit, and his palm slapped Jiang Feng's left arm. As the saying goes, using little effort to overcome 1,000 caddies, one powerful man can defeat 10 skilled men. Chen Zhizhong's seemingly light palm actually contained a terrifying power. After hitting Jiang Feng's left arm, Jiang Feng staggered 5 or 6 steps to the right before he steadied himself with a look of disbelief. Jiang Feng moved his lips, but he couldn't say the words that were stuck in his throat. Chen Zhizhong shook his head and said, Brother Jiang, in the eyes of ordinary people, your movements are big and fierce, and your speed is so fast that their eyes can't follow it. But in my eyes, your speed is too slow, your moves have too many flaws, and your strength is also a bit lacking. If I want to, you'll definitely lose in 3 moves at most. An angry and ashamed look flashed in Jiang Feng's eyes as he said in a deep voice, Brother Chen, I might agree with this if it was your master who said it. But I don't believe it when it comes from your mouth. Show me if you have the ability. I want to see how you'll defeat me in 3 moves. Chen Zhizhong's brows furrowed and he instantly dashed toward Jiang Feng. His speed was extremely fast, and the distance of 5 or 6 meters was crossed in an instant. After Jiang Feng dodged his punches, Chen Zhizhong suddenly bent down. The moment his left hand pressed against the ground, he kicked out with both feet. Spiral strangulation kick. In an instant, he kicked out more than 10 times. After the last kick, Chen Zhizhong's toes touched the ground, but his body spun in a 180-degree angle. In an instant, he appeared behind Jiang Feng, and his hand was already on the left side of Jiang Feng's neck. You lost. The tranquil voice made Jiang Feng's heart fall into an ice cave. I lost. I lost just like that. Jiang Feng's robust body stiffened. He wanted to turn his head to look at Chen Zhizhong, but he couldn't budge at all under the iron clamp-like grip. How did you do it? Chen Zhizhong released Jiang Feng and saw that he finally turned his head. Then, he lightly smiled and said, I told you that my cultivation has been advancing by leaps and bounds ever since I became your disciple. Let alone a martial arts grandmaster, even experts who have surpassed the grandmaster realm will find it very difficult to defeat me. In fact, it's not impossible for a real expert to leap onto roofs and vault over walls, as well as picking leaves to injure people. My master can do it easily. Jiang Feng's lips squirmed, and an indescribably complicated expression appeared on his face. He lost. Recalling his contemptuous attitude toward Chen Zhizhong just now, bitterness surged in his heart. Never in his wildest dreams did he expect that not only did he lose, but he also lost so quickly and miserably. Just now, when Chen Zhizhong said 3 moves, he had already felt that Chen Zhizhong had left him some face. Otherwise, not to mention 3 moves, Chen Zhizhong could probably heavily injure him with just 1 move. The difference in speed, strength, and moves was really too big. At the side, Jiang Feng's 2 disciples were already dumbfounded with disbelief written all over their faces. Never in their wildest dreams did they expect that Chen Zhizhong, who was not much stronger than them, could actually defeat their master who was a martial arts grandmaster. Moreover, the speed of his defeat was so fast. Junior brother, I'm not dreaming, am I? You're not dreaming, senior brother, because we can't have the same dream at the same time. Master, he really lost. He lost to Chen Zhizhong. How is this possible? Master is a martial arts grandmaster. Chen Zhizhong, Senior brother, Chen Zhizhong has become very strong, so strong that it makes my heart tremble. His speed is too fast. When he fought with Master just now, I couldn't see his movements at all, and then Master was defeated. Chen Zhizhong walked to the weapon rack at the side and reached out to pick up his coat. He then looked at the dumbfounded Jiang Feng and said with a smile, Brother Jiang, our match is over, so I won't bother you anymore. Brother Jiang, come to my place and we'll have a few cups of wine together. Jiang Feng finally sobered up from his daze. He dashed to the front of Chen Zhizhong and hurriedly said, Brother Chen, please hold on. The reason why your strength increased so fast, was it really from Tang? Grandmaster Tang? You're not deceiving me, are you? Brother Jiang, do you think I need to deceive you? Chen Zhizhong said. Jiang Feng was silent for a moment before he slowly said, I wonder if Brother Chen can help introduce me to Tan Xiu as my master. Chen Zhizhong couldn't help laughing and said, Brother Jiang, to be honest, I do want to be your senior brother. But my master is a man with his own ideas. If he wants to accept you as his disciple, he will naturally agree. But if he doesn't want to, there's nothing I can do. Jiang Feng was silent for a moment before he said, I'll visit Grandmaster Tang tomorrow. Chen Zhizhong waved his hand and said, I advise you not to go tomorrow. My master has been giving medical services in Star City Chinese Medical Hospital for the past few days, so he has no time to see you. However, you can try going to South Gate Town the day after tomorrow. But I can't guarantee that he will accept you as his disciple. Jiang Feng heavily nodded and said, I'll know after I try. The next day, as usual, Tan Xiu arrived at Star City Chinese Medical Hospital at around 6 p.m. To his surprise, Chu Guoxiong and the old Chinese doctor surnamed who had also arrived. After exchanging some greetings, the trio immediately began to treat the patients. It wasn't until noon that the 3 of them took a break during lunch. However, during lunch, Tan Xiu received a text message from Kawako Yamamoto, stating the time of arrival in Star City as well as a list of more than a dozen people. 9 p.m. Tan Xiu left Star City Chinese Medical Hospital. Although Li Hongji hoped that Tan Xiu could give medical services in the hospital for one more day, Tan Xiu directly refused. Although there were still a lot of patients coming from all over the country, it was impossible for him to stay in Star City Chinese Medical Hospital for a long time. Therefore, the task of receiving and treating patients was completely handed over to Chu Guoxiong and the old Chinese doctor surnamed Hu. Late at night, 2 p.m. Tan Xiu and Tai Zhongkue quietly appeared in a small alley in a residential area in the southern suburbs of Star City. Their figures were like ghosts in the night as they silently rushed toward a dilapidated courtyard. Soon after, when the two of them quietly appeared in a dark corner outside the courtyard wall, they immediately hid inside. Tan Shio took out his mobile and sent a text message. It didn't take long for Kawako, who was dressed in a night suit, to approach silently. Pa! A small stone was shot out from Tan Shio's finger. Kawako's complexion slightly changed. After identifying the direction, she quickly came to Tan Shio's front. Boss! Looking at the respectful expression on Kawako's face, Tan Shio lightly smiled and said, Tai Zhonkue, I don't need to introduce you again, right? You've fought before. Kawako glanced at Tai Zhonkue and nodded. We've fought before. His strength is good, but there's still a gap between him and me. Tai Zhonkue coldly snorted. That was before. I can definitely beat you if we fight now, said Tai Zhonkue. Kawako sneered and looked at Tan Shio, saying, Boss, this is the information on those people. They're the men my family sent to me. Although they respect me on the surface, they're not my men. They're likely to be my competitors in the future. Their photos are in the information. You just came to Star City, so it's not the right time to act now. Tan Shio nodded. Tomorrow night, you'll immediately take your men to carry out the task I told you before. Some people will fight you when the time comes. I'll follow your arrangement, boss, said Kawako respectfully. Also, you told me to find a lot of medicinal herbs and ores, and I've found them. They're in this courtyard. Do you want to take them away now? Or after the matter is over tomorrow? Chapter 497. Go to the magnificent Tang Corps HQ tomorrow. Remember to call Kang Xia by name. She's also one of us, so she'll sign a contract with you to sell you 20,000 bottles of God's nectar every year. Tan Shio smilingly said. I'll keep it in mind, boss, said Kawako respectfully. About the medicinal pills, boss, you can rest assured about the medicinal pills. Someone will give you the cultivation resources shortly after you return to Japan. Tan Shio smilingly said, however, I have a few medicinal pills here. However, I have a few pills here. Take them back and consume them on your own. I believe that with the help of these pills, your cultivation will advance by leaps and bounds in a short period of time. Having said that, Tan Shio then took out a jade bottle from his interspatial ring and handed it over to Kawako. Kawako's eyes lit up and she gratefully said, Thank you, boss. No need to thank me. Tan Shio waved his hand and said, You must perform well in tomorrow's show without revealing any flaws. I'll also make 2 of them stay in the list of names you gave me. Else, it'll be inconvenient for you to explain some things after you return to Japan. This subordinate understands, boss, said Kawako respectfully. As Kawako left, Tan Shio glanced at Tai Zhonkue and exhorted, I'll be watching your show tomorrow night. I hope you won't take it lightly and make unnecessary mistakes. Kawako is one of us, so I hope you can trust her completely in the future. But she's a Japanese, boss, said Tai Zhonkue hesitantly. She's also the eldest daughter of the Yamamoto family. I understand your concerns, but her credibility is higher than those outer members of the Everlasting Feast Hall, said Tan Shio calmly. Furthermore, her identity is very important and she'll be an important figure for me to launch some plans in the future. If she's trained well, I'll be able to do whatever I want in Japan in the future. Tai Zhonkue was silent for a moment before he solemnly nodded and said, Since you said so, I'll naturally treat her as one of us in the future. You can rest assured that we won't make any mistakes in tomorrow's show. Tan Shio patted his shoulder and said with a smile, Remember this place. Let's go back first. This time, she has brought a lot of precious herbs and ores. I need you to transport these things to my residence in the South Gate town. Yes. Tai Zhonkue said respectfully. October 5th. After Tan Shio got up and washed up, he went to the living room on the first floor. What surprised him was that other than his mother sitting on the sofa in the living room, Long Zhengyu was also in high spirits with a smile on his face. Yo, young Master Long, when did you come back? Tan Shio smiled and walked over. Long Zhenyu got up and stepped forward to hug Tan Xiu. Then, he smilingly said, I just returned to Star City last night. The reconstruction project in Nine Dragons Island is progressing smoothly and is expected to be completed by June next year. The reason I came back this time is because there's a problem with the construction in Walled Hill Village, so I came back to solve it. Tan Xiu stared blankly and asked with a confused expression, how could there be a problem in Walled Hill Village? What is it? It's not a big deal, said Long Zhenyu with a smile. It's just that there's a subsidence and a landslide during the construction. Last night, I rushed there to investigate and found that there was a tomb under the collapsed area. I thought it was an ancient tomb, but later I figured out that it's not. The tomb has existed for less than 100 years, and apart from dozens of coffins, there's nothing precious inside. Is it a big loss? Tan Xiu nodded. It's not a big loss, but the project has been delayed. Long Zhenyu shook his head. But it doesn't matter. We just need to speed up the work, and it shouldn't be a problem to meet the estimated deadline. Walled Hill Village is a good place, and it must be developed well, said Tan Xiu. Especially the quality issue, we must not make any mistakes, else it will bring a lot of negative impacts to the Long Group and even the new city we invested in. The smile on Long Zhenyu's face slowly disappeared as he nodded and said, Don't worry. I'm well aware of it. Besides, my dad has been paying attention to this matter recently. I even heard that he personally took the quality inspection supervisor to check it several times. There won't be any problem. Tan Xiu nodded and asked, Then why did you come here so early in the morning? Is there something else? Long Zhenyu said with a smile, Last night, I learned that you don't need to go to Star City Chinese Medical Hospital to provide medical services today, so I wanted to invite you to the new city to have a look. The foundation of dozens of buildings there has been completed. You're one of the most important investors, don't you want to go there and have a look? What's there to see? Tan Xiu snappily said. Kang Xia often goes there, so it's fine with her supervision. I have a lot of things to do, so I'll stay at home for a day. I have to rush to the imperial capital tomorrow. I haven't had a good chat with my mom since I came back this time. Xiu, Su Lingyun said with a smile on the corner of her mouth, since Zhenyu has come to see you, you should go with him. You have to come back every day anyway, so just come back early. Yesterday, your dad said that the three of us will go to the imperial capital together during your vacation. Since you're going there tomorrow, let's go together to see your grandpa. Alright, then let's go together tomorrow, Tan Xiu said with a smile. After breakfast, Tan Xiu and Long Zhenyu left South Gate Town. They didn't rush to the new city's construction site, but went to the Long family to see Long Hanwen. After chatting with him for a while, they went to the new city's construction site. How is it? The scale is not small, right? Long Zhenyu jumped on the roof of the Land Rover and said with a smile while pointing to the surrounded construction site. Tan Xiu stood beside him and lightly said, It's just so. I've seen a construction site hundreds of times bigger than this. Long Zhenyu rolled his eyes and snorted, keep bragging. If it's hundreds of times bigger than this new city's construction site, then we can build a new imperial capital. That's right, I want to ask you something. What is it? Tan Xiu said with a smile. Long Zhenyu said, What's your plan after the new city is built? Do you want your magnificent Tang Corporation to order some shops or residential buildings to store them? I'm telling you, once we start selling the new city, I'm afraid the sales will be crazy. Even though the price will be very high, if you buy it and hold it for a few years, the price might even double. How much can your Long family hoard at that time? Tan Xiu said with a smile. Long Zhenyu said confidently, At the very least, we can hoard hundreds of shops and hundreds of luxury residential houses. Are you sure your Long family can afford that much money? Tan Xiu asked with a strange expression. Don't we still have the bank? Long Zhenyu said with a smile. Once the Nine Dragons Island project and the Walled Hill Village project are finished, our Long family will be able to withdraw a lot of funds and return it to the bank. Tan Shio couldn't help laughing and said, "So this is your Long family's idea, huh? My magnificent Tang Corporation can naturally see the appreciation of the new city's real estate, but I'm not sure how many houses we can hoard. Let's wait for the official opening and see how much money the magnificent Tang Corporation can afford." The magnificent Tang Corporation's recent development is simply making me jealous, Long Zhengyu said with a smile. I'm really helpless. Why didn't I get involved in it? Long Zhengyu said with a smile, you didn't get involved in it, but your brother has shares in the unlisted health products. Your Long family can also be considered to have meddled in my magnificent Tang Corporation, right? Long Zhengyu grinned and said, hee, that good-for-nothing brother of mine is really lucky after getting to know you. Long Zhengyu grinned and said, judging from your magnificent Tang Corporation's God's Nectar, scar removal cream, and skin care lotion, I'm sure the health products business will be booming. That's right, I heard that your magnificent Tang Corporation has encountered some trouble recently. Do you want me to help you with something? It's just a small problem, Tan Shio said with a smile. It should be solved smoothly in a few days. Long Zhengyu nodded and said, I know your ability, so I believe you can solve it. But don't hesitate to ask if you need anything. All right. At the magnificent Tang Corporation. Kawako Yamamoto walked out of the magnificent Tang Corporation's front door along with several of her men. After a discussion with the company's general manager, Kang Xia, Kawako smoothly signed a contract with Kang Xia, whereby she would be able to order 20,000 bottles of God's Nectar from the magnificent Tang Corporation every year. Above the building, at the window of the general manager's office, Kang Xia wore a smile on her face as she looked at Tai Zhongkue, who came out from the next room and asked, Did you find anything? One of the people on the list given by boss turned on his mobile phone when you were talking with Kawako, said Tai Zhongkue. The content of your conversation should have been clearly heard by the boss behind the scenes. I originally thought that they would report to the boss behind the scenes after they left, said Kang Xia with a smile. But I didn't expect them to be so direct and bold. It seems that it will be a bit difficult for Kawako to smoothly become the patriarch of the Yamamoto family. The Yamamoto family has a large number of members and is a huge force with intense infighting among them, said Tai Zhongkue. It's indeed not an easy task for Kawako to become the patriarch of the Yamamoto family. Furthermore, Japan is a male-dominated country and women have a very low status there, which makes it more difficult for Kawako to become the patriarch of the family. Though I don't believe in Kawako's ability, I believe in boss's ability, said Kang Xia with a smile. Since he wants Kawako to become the future patriarch of the Yamamoto family and the sect master of the North Star One Blade School, he can definitely do it. Tai Zhongkue nodded and said, Chief Kang, if there's nothing else, then I'll go prepare first. We still have a big show to perform tonight after we're done with this show. Kang Xia said with a smile, come on. I hope you can satisfy boss. I will. The night was hazy. Inside a dilapidated courtyard in a residential area in the southern suburbs of Star City, dozens of elite experts from Japan were hiding in every corner. Inside the house, Kawako Yamamoto was wearing a night suit, wiping the scimitar in her hand with a solemn expression. On the chair opposite her, Ono Takayama was smoking a cigarette with his eyes gleaming. Miss, it's almost time. We should act now. Chapter 498. Dressed in a night suit, Kawako, who was sitting quietly on a chair with her eyes closed, suddenly opened her eyes. A glint flashed in her eyes as her vision fell on Ono Takayama. Are you in a hurry? Kawako's voice was full of indifference. It's not that I'm in a hurry, said Ono Takayama. It's just that we need to implement the action plan as soon as possible. Based on my many years of experience, the best time to act is 1 or 2 o'clock in the middle of the night. The best time? Kawako secretly sneered inwardly. According to her and Tan Shio's plan, they would rush to the vicinity of the magnificent Tang Corporation at 2 o'clock in the night and attempt to steal the company's HQ building's core information. It was all a play, and the purpose was to eliminate the dissidents and return to Japan after the failure. However, Ono Takayama was not one of her men. He was one of the people on the death list tonight. However, since Ono Takayama was eager to die, she didn't feel like reprimanding him. She slowly got up and lightly said, "Go outside and arrange the vehicles. Let's go there now." Outside the courtyard, 2 SUVs and a minibus were parked there. As everyone boarded the vehicle, it started and rushed toward the magnificent Tang Corporation's HQ. Kawako, who was sitting in the back seat, glanced at the back of Ono Takayama's head in the front seat with her cold eyes. She was silently thinking about the arrangements for returning to Japan. A few minutes later, outside the dilapidated yard, more than a dozen ghostly figures approached silently. After a sharp dagger pierced through the heart of an expert of the Yamamoto family who stayed behind to guard the medicinal herbs, the others also took action and killed 4 experts of the Yamamoto family inside. "Who the hell are you?" The remaining 2 experts of the Yamamoto family had their complexions change. They didn't move, but quickly retreated a dozen steps back and grabbed their machetes to aim at the mysterious expert who suddenly appeared. "The one who picked up the goods," a stalwart man indifferently replied. The 2 experts of the Yamamoto family exchanged glances and then one of them quickly said, "The password to pick up the goods." "Boss Tang," said the stalwart man lightly. The 2 experts of the Yamamoto family immediately heaved a sigh of relief after hearing it. One of them walked a few steps forward and pointed to the 6 big iron boxes piled up in the courtyard and said, "The password to pick up the goods is correct. All the herbs and ores are inside. You can take them." Saying that, he and another expert of the Yamamoto clan took out sharp daggers from their bosoms and stabbed them into their bodies. However, the 2 of them avoided hitting the vital parts. In addition, they immediately took care of the wounds. Although it looked terrible, at least it was not a problem for them to stay alive. The stalwart man nodded, threw a porcelain bottle, and said, "There is medicine for treating wounds inside. It is effective for your wounds. Apply it externally." With that, he immediately ordered the others to move the 6 metal boxes out and quickly left the courtyard, disappearing into the distant night. "Brother Dalong, who are those people? This is too terrifying. Not only can they identify us in the dark, but they are also very strong. We are no match for them." An expert of the Yamamoto family picked up the porcelain bottle, sprinkled the medicine on the wound, and asked curiously. Another person said, "I don't know either, but Miss said that those people are our own people. I'm guessing that if those people aren't experts of the North Star One Blade School, then they must be experts that Miss has secretly trained. Looks like our young Miss is really amazing." Of course. It was 2:00 late at night. The vicinity of the magnificent Tang Corporation's HQ appeared dim under the illumination of the lights. In the nearby dark corners, experts of the Everlasting Feast Hall were hiding. Under the dim light, there were more than a dozen experts of the Everlasting Feast Hall with work cards hanging on their chests, strolling around. These dozens of people, they were the ones who pretended to be members of the National Security Department. Their mission was very simple, to deliberately let the Yamamoto clan's martial artists see them. After the plan was completed, they would report the situation to the family's top brass. On a window on the 6th floor of the magnificent Tang Corporation's HQ, Tan Shio stood with his hands crossed behind his back, quietly observing the situation behind the building. Beside him, Tai Zhonkue was holding a night vision goggles and constantly scanning the situation below. "Boss, Kawako Yamamoto has arrived." Tai Zhonkue put down the goggles and turned to look at Tan Shio. Tan Shio nodded and said, "Go. Don't mess up this play, else it will be very disadvantageous to my plan in Japan. Remember to clearly identify those who should be killed and injure the others. Let them escape." "Understood." Killing intent flashed in Tai Zhonkue's eyes. He cupped his fists and immediately left. Originally, Tan Shio didn't plan to come here personally, but he was still worried about the situation here, so he personally came here. Kawako Yamamoto had told him that she had reported to the Yamamoto family about the mysterious disappearance of the members of the other countries and forces in Star City. Considering the situation tonight, even if her team's operation failed, the fact that they could escape proved that they were stronger than the major forces of the other countries. She even signed an agreement with the magnificent Tang Corporation. Although she could only get 20,000 bottles of God's nectar every year, it was much better compared to the forces of other countries. Who are you? Shortly after, a roar broke the silence of the night. Dozens of experts of the everlasting feast hall with work cards hanging on their chests appeared from the dark corners and quickly surrounded Kawako's team. Kawako pretended to be alarmed and hurriedly said, "Shit. We've been ambushed. These are the people from the National Security Department of China. Quickly withdraw." At this time, Tai Zhongkue, who had already rushed down, roared and pounced forward. "Since you're already here, then all of you will stay. The state has issued a death order that whoever dares to touch the magnificent Tang Corporation must be prepared to be captured or killed by us. Catch them." A melee unfolded at this moment. Kawako didn't inform her trusted subordinates before, but the people she had subdued were not the opponents of the everlasting feast hall's experts. As soon as the two sides clashed, 7 or 8 members of the Yamamoto family who were on the death list were killed and the rest were injured. Run! After Kawako and Tai Zhongkue exchanged blows, her arm was cut by Tai Zhongkue's saber. Although the injury wasn't serious, she took advantage of this moment to quickly flee to the distance. Tai Zhongkue and several experts of the everlasting feast hall pretended to chase after her. At this moment, Ono Takayama's complexion was pale and his eyes were full of fear. He never expected that the operation he thought to be foolproof would be discovered. Furthermore, the news he got turned out to be true. The magnificent Tang Corporation really had people from the National Security Department secretly protecting it. Puff! Puff! 2 sharp swords pierced through his arms and tore open a bloody wound on his back. Fresh blood instantly dyed the back of his shirt red. Run! Full of fear, Ono Takayama fled in panic and found that several of his trusted subordinates around him had been killed. He was scared out of his wits and suddenly sped up a few times. Whoosh! A sharp dagger pierced his waist. The moment he staggered and fell to the ground, 2 experts of the everlasting feast hall with work cards hanging on their chests appeared in front of him. Get lost! Ono Takayama's remaining 2 trusted subordinates arrived at this extremely urgent moment and desperately blocked the 2 experts of the everlasting feast hall. One of them grabbed Ono Takayama and quickly fled, while the other desperately fought for 7 or 8 seconds for Ono Takayama and his subordinate. The fight came to an end. The total time spent was less than 2 minutes, leaving dozens of corpses and bloodstains on the ground. The everlasting feast hall's experts chased them for a kilometer before they stopped and let the remaining Yamamoto martial artists leave. Clean up the mess and leave. Tai Zhongkue picked up the night vision goggles and looked at the window where Tan Xiu was. He found that Tan Xiu gave him a thumbs up, so he immediately put down the goggles and shouted in a deep voice. The bloody night was filled with a faint smell of blood in the air. When Kawako led the tens of defeated soldiers and fled back to the southern suburbs of Star City, the smell of blood in the air made Kawako secretly feel satisfied. Send the signal. Sitting in the back seat, Kawako covered her wound with her hand and ordered in a deep voice. Immediately, the young man in the driver's seat took out a fireworks tube and ignited it. A bunch of fireworks soared into the sky and exploded more than 10 meters high in the air. Miss, the situation is not right. When the 2 SUVs and the minibus stopped at the courtyard's entrance, the young man who had just sent the signal had a slight change in expression and hurriedly reported. Kawako opened the door and got off. She saw Ono Takayama coming out of the second SUV with the help of his confidant. She immediately furrowed her brows and asked, "How's your injury, Ono Takayama?" "I won't die, but my injury is very serious," said Ono Takayama bitterly. "My tailbone was pierced by a knife, so I don't dare to easily pull it out. Otherwise, my blood will flow faster. I need an operation immediately." Mississippi, Kawako nodded and said, "I suspect that there's something wrong with this place. Let's leave this place first and go somewhere else." Ono Takayama's expression greatly changed and he hurriedly said, miss, I can't hold on for long. Creak, as the courtyard's door was opened from the inside, an injured expert of the Yamamoto family poked his head out. When he saw Kawako and the others, he hurriedly opened the door and staggered out, saying, Miss, someone attacked us and robbed us of the herbs and ores we brought. They also killed some of our men. What? Kawako pretended to lose her composure and screamed before rushing into the courtyard with her men. Bastards! It wasn't Kawako who cursed out loud, but Ono Takayama, who was supported and followed her inside. He was horrified to find that the few corpses on the ground were all his trusted men. Kawako's 2 trusted men were not killed and only suffered some injuries. New week, begging for the recommendation votes. Today, we'll continue to update 3 chapters _. Chapter 499. The brilliant performance had the credit of the planner, as well as the military medals of the executors. The bloody smell that shrouded the HQ of the magnificent Tang Corporation gradually faded away amidst the drizzle. The follow-up program had nothing to do with Tanshio. As for how to perform it later, Tanshio believed that Kawako Yamamoto could do it well. On this night, he didn't return to South Gate Town but stayed in Kang Xia's office. Sparks flickered as smoke lingered in the air and filled every corner of the office. Thinking was the innate talent of a wise man. Tanshio was a man who was good at thinking. Although his EQ was average, his IQ was surprisingly high. Ever since he stepped into the University of Magic, he found that he rarely had the time to calm down and think. He needed to stop himself for a moment and go through the scenes of the past. As he thought about it, he realized something that made him feel helpless. The torrent of life was pushing him forward. Even though he could control many things, they were not what he wanted to happen in his life. Many of them happened suddenly. Family, cultivation, and development. The 3 paths of life that he had temporarily set for himself were already quietly shifting. Therefore, he needed to think about it now. Which matter was more important? How should he live his life in the future? Early in the morning, the drizzle turned into a torrential downpour. The curtain of rain covered the sky, making the whole world appear dusky. The scene of the heavy rain pressing down on the city made Tanshio not feel sleepy at all. He stood by the window and looked down at the pedestrians holding colorful umbrellas, as well as the long line of vehicles on the highway. A faint smile outlined on the corner of his mouth. He planned and smoothed out his life. He didn't know when he could break through the blue sky above his head and once again set foot on the cruel and fertile land of the immortal world. But he firmly believed that one day, he would be above the millions of races in the immortal world. What he needed to do in the days on Earth was to enjoy the warmth of his family, as well as cultivate diligently and cultivate his own forces. Pa! The door was pushed open, and Kang Xia, who was wearing high heels and carrying a high-end bag, walked in from the outside. When she saw the back of Tanshio standing by the window, her pair of bright eyes suddenly became incomparably bright. Her slender legs strode forward gracefully. She threw her bag on the sofa and hugged Tanshio's waist from behind. You didn't go back tonight? Tanshio tilted his head slightly and smiled faintly. I didn't go back. I'm thinking about something. Kang Xia released Tanshio and went to Tanshio's side, asking curiously, what are you thinking about? Tanshio smiled faintly and said, thinking about the meaning of living. What's there to think about? Kang Xia couldn't help laughing and said, since we're still alive, we must live splendidly. We must feel that we haven't wasted our lives after we reach the end. Kang Xia, let's move the magnificent Tang Corporation's HQ. Tanshio said with a smile. Kang Xia stared blankly and curiously asked, where are we moving to? We're moving to Shanghai, said Tanshio. Boss, although our company's income is good and we also have a lot of spare money, I'm afraid it will affect our development progress if we move to Shanghai. Kang Xia hesitated. What I'm talking about is not moving out immediately. Tanshio said. I'll draw the design of our company's HQ in Shanghai before the new year. I'll also buy a plot of land and do the preparation work. 2 years. The HQ must be built in Shanghai in 2 years, and then we'll move the company there. How are we going to solve the production of our products? Asked Kang Xia. We'll build an industrial park that belongs to our magnificent Tang Corporation, said Tan Xiu. When the time comes, I need you to build that place into a hen that lays golden eggs, so that huge profits will flow into our company's account every day. Money? Kang Xia asked. It's going to take a lot of money for such a big project. How much are you going to invest? At least 20 billion, said Tan Xiu. Hiss, even though Kang Xia felt that Tan Xiu would invest a lot of money, she was still shocked by the number. It must be noted that the total assets of the magnificent Tang Corporation were no more than 20 billion yuan. Yet, Tan Xiu actually wanted to invest 20 billion yuan in the construction within 2 years, which would seriously affect the company's financial problems. Don't worry, Tan Xiu said with a smile. The magnificent Tang Corporation's development will remain in its current state, and I won't use any money here. Give me more time, let alone 20 billion, even if it's 200 billion, I can still get it. Kang Xia shuddered inwardly. Her eyes shone as she asked, how are you going to do it, boss? I won't tell you for the time being, said Tan Xiu. Your task is to hurry up and get our health products into the market. You must earn as much money as possible before June 1st next year. Zheng Yu and I talked about it. It's very likely that the Long family will propose to sell the properties in New City before June 1st next year. I see. Kang Xia's eyes lit up as she nodded. Tan Xiu patted her shoulder and smilingly said, I'll leave the company's affairs to you. If you feel tired, spend money to poach outstanding management talents and train them as much as possible. The magnificent Tang Corporation's scale will continue to expand in the next few years, and will need a lot of talents when the time comes. We need to prepare for a rainy day. Don't worry. I know what to do, said Kang Xia with a smile. Since you know what to do, then I won't say anything more. Tan Xiu nodded. I'll accompany my parents to the imperial capital today, so I'll leave first. I'll directly return to Shanghai after I leave the imperial capital. Call me if you need anything. You're leaving today. Kang Xia's eyes were filled with reluctance as she subconsciously grabbed Tan Xiu's arm. At noon, Tan Xiu drove his parents on the road to the imperial capital. He didn't choose to take a plane due to the weather and directly drove there instead. To his satisfaction, 4 women in their 30s had been quietly following behind him. They were the people whom Kawako had carefully selected from the North Star One Blade School's inner circle. Their files had already appeared in the North Star One Blade School's database of the school's death list. Night fell. 2 cars came out of the highway toll station, but they were stopped at the exit because their license plate number was limited. Xiu, you've been driving for 6 hours. Take a good rest. Let's go to the city after midnight. After getting off the car, Su Lingyun looked at Tan Xiu, who was smoking in front of the car and said with a smile. I'm in a hurry, Mom. Going to the city after midnight will delay my discussion with Grandpa, said Tan Xiu with a faint smile. I just called Auntie, so I believe we'll be able to go to the city soon. Child, your auntie is so busy. How can you trouble her for such a trivial matter? Su Lingyun said with a smile. Just as he was about to speak, Tan Xiu suddenly furrowed his brows and saw several high-end sports cars rushing out of the toll station. The engines of those expensive sports cars roared as their speed kept soaring and quickly disappeared at the end of the road in the distance. The children of those big families in the imperial capital are really outrageous. Tang Yunda got off the car and sighed while shaking his head. With a big tree at home, they won't be affected by the wind and rain. It's their family background that gives them courage. Tan Xiu said with a faint smile. It's just that their way of driving will harm people. I know, right? Tang Yunda said. The number of traffic accidents every year is increasing exponentially, and the number of people who die in car accidents every year is too many to count. If everyone is a bit slower and steady, we can reduce the number of family wrecks and deaths. While they were talking, a police car parked nearby and several traffic policemen came out of the car. Tan Xiu then heard them asking someone for his name. Over here. Tan Xiu beckoned. Immediately, a few policemen quickly walked over. The tall policeman who took the lead asked with a smile, "Are you Mr. Tang Xiu?" "That's me." Tan Xiu nodded. The policeman quickly said, "We just received a call from Minister Tang. Since you have an important matter, we're here to escort you to the destination. Please." Tan Xiu nodded and said, "There's another car behind us. Let them go with us." "All right." After getting on the car, "Son, what do you mean by there's another car behind us?" Su Lingyun asked with a strange expression. "They're your bodyguards," Tan Xiu answered while driving. "Since when did I have bodyguards?" Su Lingyun stared blankly and asked in astonishment. "They've been following you for the past few months, but you didn't know about it." Tan Xiu said with a smile. "Their duty is to protect your safety and not disturb your life, Mom. I'm the one who arranged it. You can rest assured." "Who are they, Xiu?" Su Lingyun quickly asked. "I arranged them, so they're naturally my people," said Tan Xiu with a smile. "Don't ask. You won't know their origins even if I tell you. Let's go. Grandpa already knows that we're coming to the imperial capital. I'm sure he's waiting for us now." Su Lingyun hesitated for a moment before she finally nodded. Although Tan Xiu had told her that he would arrange some bodyguards for her, she had never seen them, so she thought that there were no bodyguards at all. Who would have thought that these bodyguards had been hiding in the dark to protect her for several months? What a good son. Tang Yunda, who sat next to Su Lingyun, sighed with a smile. At the Tang family's ancestral residence, Tang Min was nestled on the sofa, looking at the steaming hot dishes on the table with a forced smile on her face. The old man and her mother looked outside from time to time, making her even more speechless. "Mom, Dad, second brother, and the others will be here for a while. How about we eat first? I was too busy at noon today, so I only had a simple bite. I'm so hungry now that my chest is sticking to my back." "No." Tang Guosheng replied without hesitation. On the other side of the sofa, Tang Guoshou smilingly said, "Little Min, since your second brother and second sister-in-law are coming, I think we should wait for them. They drove here and didn't eat anything on the way. If you're really hungry and can't stand it, go to the kitchen and find something to eat." "I'll wait for them, third uncle." Tang Min forced a smile. Chapter 500. The former Tang family was like a pool of stagnant water, and the ancestral mansion was even more lifeless. However, ever since Tang Guosheng's illness was cured, the Tang family's descendant, Tan Xiu, was found, and the vegetative Tang Yunda woke up. The Tang family was now full of joy and laughter, and the entire family was full of vitality. Especially, the competition between the Tang family and the Yao family in the south finally ended with the Tang family's overwhelming victory, making the Tang family feel proud and elated. However, the Tang family also knew that the earth-shaking changes in the family were all brought about by Tan Xiu. Therefore, Tan Xiu's status in the Tang family could almost be compared with the older generation. Outside the ancestral mansion, Tang Ning was dressed in casual clothes. She stood up straight and kept her eyes on the entrance of the alleyway. Two soldiers in military uniform with guns in their hands looked at her curiously. They were surprised that Tang Ning had returned. In fact, it looked like she was waiting for someone. Creak, two cars drove into the alley and stopped outside the gate of the Tang family's ancestral mansion. "Second uncle, second auntie." Tang Ning personally opened the door and respectfully greeted them. Her eyes fell on Tan Xiu, who just got off the driver's seat. The cold expression on her face gradually melted and was replaced with a smile. "You rarely come back from the army, little Ning," said Tang Yunda with a smile. "I knew little brother would come, so I asked for a leave to come back," said Tang Ning. You brothers rarely meet each other, so you should really get together. Tang Yunda laughed. Our Tang family must unite as one. Tan Xiu let out a faint smile and called out, Brother Tangning. With a smile, Tangning said, Tan Xiu, you've done a good job in the south. It's nothing, said Tan Xiu. Raising his thumbs up, Tangning smilingly said, You're worthy of being my brother. I like your tone. Let's go. Grandpa and third grandpa are waiting for you. After entering the ancestral mansion and coming to the innermost bamboo house, Tang Min was the first to jump up from the sofa and smilingly said, Second brother, second sister-in-law, you finally arrived. I would have starved to death if you came a bit later. Tang Yunda and Su Lingyun smiled and greeted everyone in the room. Under Tang Guisheng's invitation, the whole family sat down at the dining table. The dinner was very sumptuous, and Tang Guisheng personally brought out 2 bottles of God's nectar that Kang Xia had sent over. After dinner, Su Lingyun accompanied the old lady to clean up the dishes, while Tang Guisheng brought everyone to the study. As the lingering smoke rose, Tang Min's voice was the first to break the silence, Dad, since Tan Xiu is already here, just say it. Tang Guisheng's eyes fell on Tan Xiu and said, Xiu, let's not talk about business first. Can you tell me the identities of the 4 people outside? Tan Xiu said, They are my mother's bodyguards from the North Star One Blade School of Japan. What? Tang Guisheng's expression was blank, and so were the others in the study. Precisely speaking, they used to be experts of the North Star One Blade School in Japan. But now, they have changed their appearances, changed their names, and changed their identities to have new identities in Huaxia, said Tang Xiu. I've trained some people, and one of them is the eldest daughter of Japan's Yamamoto family. She's also the main candidate to compete for the North Star One Blade School's master position in the future. Tang Guisheng frowned and asked, Xiu, I have nothing to say if you train some talents in the country. But these Japanese, are they trustworthy? Grandpa, my mother's life is more important than my own. I naturally won't let them protect her easily if I'm not sure, said Tan Xiu. Tang Guisheng gently nodded and said, I want to know why you train these Japanese. Resources. Tan Xiu said seriously. We need a lot of resources if we want to develop, and I also need resources if I want to do something. Although the island country is very small, the vast sea around it contains a huge amount of resources. If one day, the people I train can have a very high status and huge power in Japan, it won't be a bad thing for me to use them, right? Tang Guisheng was startled and hurriedly asked, You mean, you can influence Japan's politics in the future? Not influence, but control. Tan Xiu shook his head. Hiss, the 5 people in the room gasped at the same time. From Tang Xiu's words, they could hear the crazy ambition in his words. If my history is correct, Japan once tried to control our country's territory and even killed a lot of people in our country, said Tan Xiu with a faint smile. The method they used was armed force. They relied on force to suppress and rule by blood. What I'm doing is to erode them in the dark and secretly infiltrate them. In the future, I'll be able to control the top figures in Japan. Do I still need to worry about not being able to use Japan in the future? Your idea is good, Xiu, but you're too naive. Tang Guisheng shook his head and forced a smile. They may need your help now to expand their forces and elevate their status. But in the future, they'll definitely break away from your control. In my opinion, the people of the island are despicable, and shameless blood flows in their bones. Grandpa, I once heard a saying that the more powerful they are, the more they fear death. Tan Xiu asked with a smile. Do you think this saying is correct? Tang Guisheng pondered for a moment before he slowly nodded and forced a smile. You're right. The more they get, the more they want to enjoy themselves. Naturally, they're afraid of death. Tan Xiu raised his hand and clenched it into a fist. He confidently smiled and said, I have a way to control their life and death. Even if they try to resist with all the power of Japan, they won't be able to break away from my control. Tang Guisheng fell into silence. With a strange expression, Tang Guoshu lit another cigarette. As for Tang Min, Tang Yunda, and Tang Ning, they looked at Tan Xiu incredulously with all kinds of thoughts churning inside their minds. Let's not talk about Japan, Grandpa, said Tan Xiu with a faint smile. Let's get down to business. Tang Guosheng's eyes flickered as he nodded and said, do you still remember what I told you on the phone? I remember, said Tan Xiu. I've discussed this matter with everyone, and I think you can handle it, said Tang Guosheng. 50 billion is all the funds our Tang family can take out in secret without anyone noticing. Since the other families are eyeing our Tang family, it'll be hard for us to not be noticed by them if we use this money. Hence, you're the most suitable person to handle it. Don't tell me you're not afraid that I'll squander all this money? Asked Tan Xiu with a smile. Will you? Asked Tang Guosheng. Don't worry. Tan Xiu shook his head and said. I'll give you a satisfactory answer before I graduate from college. Also, I want to know how many trustworthy people the Tang family has now. The trust I'm talking about is absolute loyalty to the Tang family. Tang Guosheng and Tang Guoshu exchanged glances. Tang Guoshu coughed and said, it's hard to count them, but the number is definitely more than 1,000. What about the number of martial artists? Asked Tan Xiu again. I'm talking about the talents with good skills. Tang Guoshu thought for a moment and then slowly said, at least 300 people. I'm talking about the number, the talents who are absolutely loyal to our Tang family. Some of them were adopted by our Tang family when they were young and were sent to some martial arts schools in the country to learn martial arts. Some were also sent to the army and eventually obtained good achievements. Of course, if our Tang family wants to do something, we can also send tens of thousands of people to do it without using the power of the military. Give me 20 experts who are absolutely loyal to the Tang family every year, said Tan Xiu. I'll send people to carry out special training for them. As long as they can survive and complete the special training, their strength will be doubled. Where will they be sent for special training? Asked Tang Guosheng. Jingmen Island, the Everlasting Feast Hall's HQ, answered Tan Xiu. Tang Guosheng slowly nodded. A smile appeared on his old face as he said, then I'll wait and see. I'll draw up a list and give them to you later. The night talk went on for 3 hours. In the early morning, Tang Guoshu was sent back to his residence by Tang Ning, whereas Tan Xiu's family of 3 directly stayed in the Tang family's ancestral residence. Early the next morning, Tan Xiu received a call from Li Laozhan. However, he didn't rush to meet Li Laozhan since the underground auction would be held at 2 p.m. in the imperial capital. Instead, he followed Tang Min to stroll around many bustling areas in the imperial capital. Of course. Given Tang Min's character, the trunk of the Land Rover Range Rover Tan Xiu drove was naturally full of purchases, most of which were for Tan Xiu. Auntie, the money has arrived. On the street with an endless stream of people, Tan Xiu, who was carrying a few bags in his hands, felt his mobile vibrate. He took it out and looked at it. He then saw that 50 billion had been transferred to his account. It's good that you've received it, said Tang Min with a smile. Anyways, I'm curious. Why is your bank card's name Gu Xiaoxue? It should be a girl's name, right? Is she your girlfriend? I'm her Grand Master, said Tan Xiu. Tang Min couldn't help laughing and said, Grand Master? What Grand Master? Anyways, we have an agreement. If you have a girlfriend, you must bring her to see Auntie. Tan Xiu let out an indifferent smile and casually complied. He then put his mobile back into his pocket. The bank card that received the money was indeed handled by Gu Xiaoxue. A long time ago, he got a sum of money from Gu Xiaoxue, which was directly given to his bank card. Now that his identity was exposed, the hostile families would definitely investigate his information, and the assets he had in the bank would probably be found out. Therefore, this 50 billion must be kept a secret. And now, there was a total of 60 billion in his bank account. Among them, he had more than 1 billion, and Gu Xiaoxue had transferred 9 billion to this account, which was to be used to establish a medicinal garden and raise the fierce beasts. With such a large sum of money, even if Tan Shou didn't care much about money, he was still somewhat happy inside. Auntie, I won't accompany you for lunch. I'm going to see a friend in the afternoon, so I'll go with him, said Tan Shou with a smile. All right. Tang Min smiled. Tang Min said with a smile, go do what you have to do. When you return to Shanghai, just let me know. Sorry, I was dragged away by some internet gurus in Guangdong province for a drink yesterday, which delayed the update of the 3rd chapter. I'll try to make up for it in these 2 days. Chapter 501. At noon. Tan Shou saw the happy Li Laoshan. What made Tan Shou at a loss whether he had to cry or laugh was that Li Laoshan's extravagance was very big. There were 16 bodyguards in black suits and black sunglasses. They happened to meet him at the entrance of a hotel, attracting a lot of people's attention, thinking that they were shooting a movie. Old brother Li, can't we keep a low profile? Tan Shou wore a casual outfit, a cap, and a pair of big black sunglasses. He dressed like this mainly because he was surrounded by countless people when he accompanied his aunt, Tang Min, to go shopping in the morning. After all, today was different from the past. First, there was the Demon City University's freshman welcoming party where he played the zither and sang. Later, there was the young divine doctor of Star City Chinese Medical Hospital, making him look like a star. No. He was even more popular than a star now. From aunties in their 80s to teenagers, as long as they recognized Tan Shou, they would salute him one after another. There were also countless people asking for autographs and photos. Li Laoshan grinned and said, Brother Tang, I don't have any other choice. I'm afraid that some people will have crooked thoughts if I carry the fishbowl ancient sword. But you, how come you're so low-key? If it weren't for my keen eyesight and being very familiar with you, I wouldn't have been able to recognize you. Tan Shou forced a smile and said, I don't think I'm low-key enough. Ever since the video of me giving medical services at Star City Chinese Medical Hospital was posted on the internet, I've been suffering whenever I go out. People can recognize me no matter where I go. Now, I can't wait to go to H country and get my face properly plastic surgery. Ha ha ha, Li Laoshan burst into laughter and said, I've also seen the video of you giving medical services at Star City Chinese Medical Hospital. It's very good. Especially when she said that she wanted to donate money, it warmed my heart. This old brother of mine may not have any achievements in the medical field, but I do have a kind heart. Therefore, I also donated 1 million yuan to the Star City Chinese Medical Hospital's fund. I must say, the fund column on the Star City Chinese Medical Hospital's official website is really good. It's transparent enough, and it's enough to make the good people who donate feel relieved. Tan Shou smiled bitterly and said, regarding the donation, I did a good deed unintentionally. Alright, let's not talk about this anymore. Let's talk about the underground auction. Where will it be held? The venue is very hidden, to the point that you can never imagine it, said Li Laoshan. Come with me. There are less than 2 hours left until the auction. If we hurry, we should be able to get there before 2 o'clock. Yongding River. It was one of the 5 major river systems in the imperial capital, the largest of the 5 major river systems in the Hai River, and the largest river system in the city. The underground auction would be held on the Yongding River. Old brother Li, are you mistaken? Are we really going to take this wooden boat to the underground auction? At a certain section of the river bank, Tan Shou asked in disbelief as he looked at the dozens of small wooden boats in front of him and the burly men in black suits with headphones. Li Laoshan grinned and said, how about it? You didn't expect this, did you? Every time the Situ family held an underground auction, it would always amaze everyone. This year's new trick really didn't disappoint me. Did you see that? I know those people on the boat in front. They're also here to participate in the auction. Tang Shou looked around and nodded, praising, it's indeed novel and novel. These Situ family people are really imaginative. Let's go. Since we've come to the right place, let's go straight to the auction venue. I really want to see what kind of scene it is. Li Laozhan let out a faint smile and came to the boarding gate side by side with Tan Xiu, but they were stopped by the ship guards. One of the burly men checked the invitation given by Li Laozhan and then said, "Mr. Li, you can only take 3 people to board the boat at most." "I know." Li Laozhan nodded. After boarding the boat with Tan Xiu, he gestured to 2 of the bodyguards. Then, the group of 4 boarded the boat and rowed toward the distance of the river. 10 minutes later, Tan Xiu finally saw the scene of the auction venue. He looked at the middle of the wide river, where a platform half a meter high was temporarily built and surrounded by small boats. Each boat was tied with iron chains, with 2 layers of chains extending to the shore. Old brother Li, I'm also speechless after seeing this scene. Tan Xiu was at a loss whether he had to cry or laugh as he shook his head and couldn't help but sigh. Li Laozhan, on the other hand, felt that it was quite novel. He chuckled and said, "It's indeed very interesting. Look at those boats. Many of them are somewhat familiar, and I even know some of them." "That's right, we're late, so I'm afraid we'll be the last ones, right? But it doesn't matter since it won't affect our bidding. I just came here to widen my knowledge and experience." Tan Xiu shook his head and smilingly said, "I also want to see you fight with that guy who wants to get your Yuchang sword and compete in terms of financial resources. I'm afraid I won't have much use for this auction." "That's right, if you don't have enough money for the auction, I can lend you some." "You're joking, brother Tang." Li Laozhan couldn't help laughing and said, "The magnificent Tang Corporation may have made a lot of money recently, but we still need money in other places. Don't worry about it. I've prepared enough money this time. If it exceeds my budget, then the Yuchang sword will be sold at a high price. Are you really willing to part with it?" Tan Xiu's expression moved and he asked. "I'm a bit reluctant, but everything has its own value. If it exceeds that value, then the gains won't make up for the losses," Li Laozhan said. Tan Xiu gave him a thumbs up and praised, "Old brother Li, you're really a hero among men. It's a pity that there's no wine, else I'd definitely toast you." Li Laozhan let out a strange smile and said, "Who said there's no wine? I dare say that someone will definitely send it to us in less than 3 minutes. Do you believe me? Someone will send us wine." Tan Xiu was surprised. "Is it true or not?" Li Laozhan pointed to several rowing boats and smilingly said, "See that? Those boats should be delivering wine, fruit plates, and desserts to the guests. The clansmen of the Situ clan have one thing in common, and that is that they especially like to curry favor. They are very attentive when dealing with people. I heard that every time the underground auction is held, the guests will feel at home." Sure enough. A few minutes later, a small boat rowed to the side of Tan Xiu's boat. A stalwart man took a rope and fixed the boat on the iron cable. He then cupped his fists toward Li Laozhan's group of 4 and said, "Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Imperial Capital's auction. My Situ family is currently taking inventory of the items to be auctioned. If you also bring something you want to auction, you can get a registration form from me and then give it to me. After the valuation, I'll ask you whether you want to sell it or not." Li Laozhan took a rectangular wooden box from a bodyguard and handed it to the Situ family's stalwart man. He then filled in the information and signed the entrustment agreement with the other party. Then, he took the tea, wine, fruit plates, desserts, and other things from the other party. The Situ family's arrangement is really good. However, I've heard about those big families in the imperial capital. But why haven't I heard of this Situ family? Tan Xiu waited until the other party left and then asked in a low voice. The Situ family is, after all, a member of the occult sect, and they don't have many family members, said Li Laozhan with a smile. Even if this family has huge wealth and a deep network of contacts, they don't involve themselves in politics after all. Each and every one of their family members is very low-key, so they don't have any fame. However, don't underestimate this family. I dare say that those medium-sized families in the imperial capital are on par with the Situ family. They're that powerful? Tan Xiu was surprised. A family that has been operating for 100 years may have a very deep heritage, said Li Laozhan. But the Situ family has been operating for more than 100 years. I heard that during the age of turmoil, the Situ family tried their best to hide themselves and greatly avoided the family's losses. Later, the torrent of reform also didn't have much impact on their family. Therefore, don't underestimate the Situ family. Having said that, Li Laozhan lowered his voice and continued, Brother Tang, you're a martial arts practitioner, so you should know that these families are not only interested in wealth and the power to control their family members, but also the strength and number of martial artists in the family. I heard that the Situ family is also a martial arts family, and each of their family members is a top-notch expert. The member of the Situ family who just delivered the things to us has a good skill. Tan Xiu nodded. Old brother Li, I'm afraid that your skill is slightly inferior to that person. Li Laozhan awkwardly said, Don't mention my meager strength, Brother Tang. It's too shameful. Usually, I can only barely deal with a few punks. If I encounter a real expert, they can knock me down with just 3 punches and 2 kicks. Tan Xiu let out a faint smile. Time fleeted by, and in the blink of an eye, it was already 2:00. As more and more boats arrived, the number of guests who came to participate in the auction had exceeded more than 100. In other words, there were at least more than 100 guests who came to participate in the auction. It's almost about to start. Li Laozhan saw a woman in a red windbreaker and red leather boots step on the platform built in the middle of the river. He then touched Tan Xiu's arm and said. As Tang Xiu looked around, his expression suddenly turned blank. How come it's her? Tan Xiu raised his arm and rubbed his eyes. He found that he was not mistaken. The woman in red was Ouyang Lulu. However, Tang Xiu's surprise had yet to end, as another person appeared out of his expectation. Tan Xiu was very familiar with this person. She was someone he once hated and was hostile to, someone he could not wait to beat up. Brother Tang, my enemy is here. Li Laozhan touched Tan Xiu and said in a low voice. Chapter 502. On the boat that arrived late, there were also 4 guests. 2 of them were obviously dressed as bodyguards, while the other 2 were a man and a woman. The man had a shaved head and wore a thick glittering gold chain around his neck. There was a faint smile on his chubby face, while the woman had a beautiful appearance and was dressed in professional attire. Tan Xiu's eyes only lingered on the bald middle-aged man for a moment before falling on the woman because she had a deep relationship with Tan Xiu. Wang Daoyuan, the boss of Goldman Sachs Construction Materials in the imperial capital. Li Laozhan squinted his eyes and looked at the approaching man. He gently touched Tan Xiu's arm and whispered. Tan Xiu didn't care about the identity of the other party. What he cared about was why Sujinin appeared beside Wang Daoyuan and dressed in professional attire. The boat approached. Wang Daoyuan, who was sitting in the boat, took out a cigar box from his bosom and took out 2 cigars from it. When the 2 boats were only 2 meters away from each other, he threw one to Li Laozhan and put it in the corner of his mouth while looking at Sujinin. What made him raise his brows was that his little secretary didn't look at him, but looked at the young man beside Li Laozhan with an ugly expression. It's him. Wang Daoyuan's expression moved and quickly recognized Tan Xiu's identity. He immediately took out another cigar and threw it to Tan Xiu, saying with a smile, Brother Li, I didn't expect you to know Divine Dr. Tang. I may be a boorish man, but the great name of Divine Dr. Tang is like a thunderclap piercing my ears. Tan Xiu caught the cigar and nodded to Wang Daoyuan. His eyes then fell on Sujinin again and indifferently said, Go home if you're crazy enough outside. I'll keep the house in Star City for you. It's the same key as before. A bit of hatred surged in Sujinin's eyes as she angrily shouted, We don't need your pity. The winner is the king and the loser is the thief. That house is yours, not ours. Humph. You still remember that your surname is Su? Tan Xiu snorted coldly. If you haven't forgotten your ancestors, find some time to go back to the Su family village to see your grandmother. Xiang Fei has been doing well recently. At least he understands filial piety now. Sujunin said angrily, "It's none of your business whether I understand filial piety or not." Tan Xiu sighed inwardly. He turned his head and glanced at Li Laozhan and Wang Daoyuan, who had strange expressions on their faces, and lightly said, "Both of you, there are unpredictable winds and clouds in the heavens, and people have their own fortunes and misfortunes. Life was never easy. It was better to squash enmity than keep it alive. Regardless of whether you get what you want today, I hope that you can live in peace in the future. The auction is over. I'll be the host tonight. I hope the two of you will do me the honor." Li Laozhan instantly understood that the reason why Tan Xiu said that was probably because of his batch of steel. He nodded slightly and looked at Wang Daoyuan. Wang Daoyuan squinted his eyes and smilingly said, "Since Divine Dr. Tang said so, I naturally can't refuse. As the local tyrant of the imperial capital, let me be the host tonight." Tan Xiu shook his head and said, "I must treat you to this dinner tonight. Consider it as me helping you resolve a small conflict. Don't worry. I'm a member of the Tang family, so I have the money to eat and drink." A member of the Tang family? Wang Daoyuan stared blankly for a moment before his pupils suddenly shrunk. His plump body instantly straightened up and said with a smile, "Since Brother Tang is treating me, then I'll definitely bring the god's nectar that I obtained with great difficulty." A smile appeared on the corner of Li Laoshan's mouth as he said, "Brother Daoyuan, since Brother Tang is treating us, then the god's nectar must be brought by him. In any case, none of us has more god's nectar than him. Brother Tang can get a lot of god's nectar through his connections." Wang Daoyuan was surprised. An angry look flashed in Sujunin's eyes as she sat next to Wang Daoyuan. But after hearing Wang Daoyuan's words, she lowered her voice and said, "Boss, he's the magnificent Tang Corporation's boss." "What?" Wang Daoyuan's complexion changed and he looked at Tan Xiu with disbelief. With his keen hearing, Tan Xiu could naturally hear Sujunin's words easily. He then lightly smiled and said, "Yes, I'm the magnificent Tang Corporation's boss." With a shocked expression, Wang Daoyuan deeply observed Tan Xiu a few times and sighed, "Every generation has its own talents, and each of them has been in the limelight for decades. Brother Tang is so young, yet your business is so prosperous. You're really not simple. All right, then. I'll thicken my face and follow Brother Tang to have a good drink tonight. As for Brother Li's steel, I'll return it to him early tomorrow morning." Tan Xiu let out a faint smile. Li Laozhan cupped his fists and smilingly said, "Brother Wang, we're doing the same business. I hope we can get closer and cooperate more in the future." "That's for sure," said Wang Daoyuan with a smile. Having said that, he turned to look at Sujunin and silently pondered the relationship between this little secretary of his and Tan Xiu. Tan Xiu was an intelligent man. Upon seeing Wang Daoyuan's expression, he lightly smiled and said, "Brother Wang, since this insensible cousin of mine is working in your company, I hope you can take care of her in the future. If she doesn't perform well one day, you don't need to retain her for my sake. Just drive her back and I'll arrange something for her to do. It's none of your business." Sujunin glared at Tan Xiu. Wang Daoyuan's heart moved. A smile immediately covered his face as he cupped his fists and said, "Brother Tang, rest assured. Yening is in my company, so I won't let her suffer any losses." Originally, Wang Daoyuan had planned to sleep with this capable and hardworking secretary of his. But now that he knew about her relationship with Tan Xiu, he immediately dispelled the idea. If Tan Xiu was only the young divine doctor of Star City Chinese Medical Hospital and the big boss of the magnificent Tang Corporation, perhaps he would only dread him, but he wouldn't be afraid. But Tan Xiu also had another identity. He was a member of the Tang family in the imperial capital. This was something he didn't dare to provoke. Sujunin looked at Wang Daoyuan and then at Tan Xiu. Her heart was full of bitterness. She originally thought that with her recent diligence and ability, she would be able to get a good income in the Goldman Sachs construction material company in the future and get a good development. Even if she left the Goldman Sachs construction material company in the future, she could still have a lot of capital and recreate the glory of her Su family in the past. At that time, she would definitely stand in front of Tan Xiao and let him know that her family was not someone he could bully. If possible, she would even make trouble for Tan Xiao and make him regret what he had done to her parents. However, at this moment, she realized that she and Tan Xiao were not on the same level. Even if she worked herself to death in the future, it would be very difficult for her to reach his height. After all, the boss in front of him was full of pride and arrogance, yet his behavior toward Tang Xiao was almost flattering, and his attitude was too low. No, I can't give up. Sujinan clenched her fists and coldly glared at Tan Xiao before she moved her eyes away. At this time, on the platform built in the middle of the river, Ouyang Lulu nodded to a row of pretty girls holding trays behind her. She then picked up the microphone on the table, looked around and said with a smile, "Welcome to the 181st Imperial City Auction, everyone. I'm honored to be invited by the Situ family to preside over today's auction. I'm Ouyang Lulu, from Jingmen Island. It's time for the auction to begin. Everyone who has come to participate in this auction is a big shot, and your time is very precious. Therefore, I won't take up any more of your time. I hope that everyone will be able to purchase the items that you are satisfied with in this auction. I hereby announce the commencement of the 181st Realm Imperial Capital Auction. The first auction item is the Qin Emperor's Imperial Jade Seal. It's a symbol of the highest authority during the Qin dynasty and is also a national treasure of China. Its starting bid is 100 million, and each bid increment must be no less than 1 million. The bidding begins now. As Ouyang Lulu's voice faded away, countless people on the hundreds of boats who came to participate in the auction looked shocked. They never thought that the first auction item would be a national treasure like the Qin Emperor's Imperial Jade Seal. It must be known. In general auctions, although the first item would be the jackpot and wouldn't be too inferior, the finale would usually be the last 3 items, or even the last one. Could there be something more precious than the Qin Emperor's Imperial Jade Seal in this auction? 110 million, 120 million. 150 million. Indeed, the guests who were eligible to participate in this Imperial Capital auction were all big shots with status and wealth. Tan Xiao heard from Li Laozhan that those who were eligible to participate must be recommended by 2 people who had participated in the auction, and their wealth must be more than 1 billion. Each big shot could only bring up to 3 people to participate. Because of this, the auction of the Qin Emperor's Imperial Jade Seal led to many people competing to bid, causing the price of the Qin Emperor's Imperial Jade Seal to rise. Tan Xiao shook his head. He didn't have much interest in the Qin Emperor's Imperial Jade Seal. The purpose of coming here was to help Li Laozhan and Wang Daoyuan resolve the conflict, while at the same time protecting the Yuchang sword brought by Li Laozhan from being robbed by others. However, Tan Xiao still wanted to see what was so special about the Qin Emperor's Imperial Jade Seal for it to have a starting bid of 100 million. When he looked over and saw the bronze seal, he couldn't help but secretly sigh at the strangeness of people's hearts. Although it was a golden collection in a chaotic world, it didn't help him. Spending a lot of money to buy it was completely a quirk. Huh? Tan Xiao suddenly raised his brows. He keenly felt that the spiritual energy of heaven and earth seemed to be a bit richer than before, and a special aura fluctuation seemed to have descended out of thin air. What's going on? Tan Xiao looked around. After seeing that there was no special situation with his body, he instantly released his spiritual sense, covering a radius of 200 to 300 meters. 2 seconds later, Tan Xiao's spiritual sense observed that the spiritual energy of heaven and earth was slowly rushing toward the Qin Emperor's Imperial Jade Seal in front of Ouyang Lulu. The special aura fluctuation was also caused by the Qin Emperor's Imperial Jade Seal. This seal, Tan Xiao hesitated for a moment. His spiritual sense instantly shrouded the Qin Emperor's Imperial Jade Seal and slowly penetrated inside. There will be 3 updates today, seeking monthly votes to support. Chapter 503. The Qin Emperor's imperial treasure seal was placed on the table in front of Ouyang Lulu. The bronze seal didn't seem to have been eroded by time as it still looked bright and clean. At this moment, as a strand of divine sense penetrated the seal, the space that appeared out of thin air inside was like a monstrous tidal wave that instantly swallowed that strand of divine sense. Puff, sitting on the boat, Tan Xiu used his divine sense to investigate the Qin Emperor's imperial treasure seal. His pupils instantly shrunk as his complexion turned pale and he coughed out a mouthful of blood. At the side, Li Laozhan turned his head. After seeing Tan Xiu's appearance, his complexion greatly changed. He quickly supported Tan Xiu's arm and hurriedly asked, "Brother Tang, are you all right?" Tan Xiu's eyes were fixated on the Qin Emperor's imperial treasure seal as if he didn't hear Li Laozhan's question. At this moment, a storm was set off in his heart. He didn't expect that the Qin Emperor's imperial treasure seal would form a hollow world inside, and there was an enormous power of providence inside that made one's hair stand on end. The power of providence was a very mysterious existence. It was ethereal, invisible, and traceless. Yet, it constantly affected every grass, every tree, every person, and every matter in the world. Every one of them had the power of providence. Those who were lucky would have more power of providence, while those who were unlucky would have less power of providence. Every country also had its own power of providence. The prosperity of a country meant that it had great providence, while the decline of a country meant that it had little providence. Providence. It represented a part of the heavenly Tao and affected the trajectory of all things. With providence, a flood of good fortune would fill the heavens. With providence, a country would be safe and sound. When Tan Xiu was in the immortal world, he had been to countless countries and continents. He had experienced the rise and fall of countless dynasties and obtained countless treasures. But he had never seen or heard of anything that could contain the power of providence. He never thought that there was some one-sided news from the God realm that said that when the power of providence reached a certain level, it could form a tangible form, like a stream of water. Boundless power of providence that's like an ocean. How much providence does one have to possess in order to form such a thing? Tan Xiu's shaken heart could not calm down for a long time. At this moment, he looked at the Qin Emperor's imperial jade seal with a burning gaze. Got it. He had to get it. No matter how great the price. Having obtained some information about the divine realm, he knew very well how precious the power of providence was. Even in the divine world, this item was something that countless true gods dreamed of obtaining. Although Tan Xiu still didn't know what the power of providence was used for. 280 million, 300 million. 310 million. The price continued to climb. There were at least 10 great figures who were interested in the Qin Emperor's imperial jade seal. However, even though he had a lot of money, he was still very cautious in increasing the price. Every time he increased the price, the amount was not very high. 1 billion. On the boat, Tan Xiu picked up Li Laozhan's bidding card, raised his hand, and said in a deep voice. Hua, on the hundreds of boats, there were hundreds of rich and powerful big shots. Their eyes fell on Tan Xiu. Most of them recognized Tan Xiu's identity. He was the young divine doctor of Star City Chinese Medical Hospital. Therefore, whether it was because Tan Xiu's bid was too high, or because they didn't want to offend Tan Xiu, the young divine doctor, the number of bidders suddenly disappeared by 90%. On the platform in the river, Ouyang Lulu, the host, immediately felt happy when she heard the bid of 1 billion. However, the familiar voice made her curious. Following everyone's gaze, she looked at the source of the bid. Disbelief instantly appeared in her eyes. How could it be, Tan Xiu? Ouyang Lulu raised the back of her hand and rubbed her eyes. After confirming that she was not seeing things, her beautiful face that could topple cities suddenly revealed a brilliant smile like a flower. 1 billion. 2 billion. 21 billion. The bidding stopped for a few seconds before it sounded again and again. However, the number of bidders had decreased by 7 or 8 times, with only 3 or 4 people still bidding. Tan Xiu raised the card in his hand again and shouted, 2 billion. Hua, the crowd was in a commotion. The guests on each boat whispered to each other. Divine Dr. Tang seems to be determined to get this Qin Emperor's imperial treasure seal. He even dares to bid 2 billion. Does he really have that much money at such a young age? Divine Dr. Tang and Li Laozhan are together. Isn't this Li Laozhan too much to help Tan Xiu? He actually took out 2 billion for him to squander. Could it be that Li Laozhan's closest friend is sick? Oh my! What a big deal! I thought this Qin Emperor's imperial treasure seal would sell for at most 1.8 billion. I didn't expect that Tan Xiu would raise the price so crazily. Could it be that he's working for the Situ family? Forget it. Tan Xiu is, after all, a divine doctor. Whose family doesn't have headaches and fever? If we have a bad relationship with him now, he won't have to refuse if we ask him for help later. I don't think this price is worth it. Forget it. Amidst the discussion, no one bid again. On the platform, Ouyang Lulu took the microphone and smilingly said, "Ladies and gentlemen, I really didn't expect that my sweetheart would come here today. He even has the courage to spend 2 billion to bid for the Qin Emperor's imperial treasure seal. I believe in his vision. This Qin Emperor's imperial treasure seal is absolutely a great thing. Is there anyone else who wants to compete with my sweetheart? If not, then I'd like to thank all of you for saving a lot of money for my sweetheart." As her voice faded away, the hundreds of big shots on the hundreds of boats roared with laughter. Many of them even loudly ridiculed Ouyang Lulu. However, Ouyang Lulu's expression didn't change. She kept cupping her fists to everyone and repeatedly nodded to express her gratitude. On the boat at the back, Tan Xiu was at a loss whether he had to cry or laugh as he looked at Ouyang Lulu's flower-like smiling face, as well as the jeering crowd around. He knew that Ouyang Lulu was like a wild horse with a fiery temperament and an incomparably heroic temperament. But saying this now was simply touching a sore spot. Li Laoshan's laughter was very loud. He grabbed Tan Xiu's shoulder and loudly laughed, "Brother Tang, you're really lucky with women. I've long heard about this little princess of the Ouyang family. She's as arrogant as a queen and bold enough to cover the sky. But I didn't expect that she's more forthright than I thought. She even dares to announce the relationship between you two in public. What a blessing! What a blessing!" A smile hung on the corner of Wang Daoyuan's mouth as he said, "That's right. You're really lucky with women, Brother Tang. I didn't expect that you could meet a confidant in this auction. When you get married, this big brother will definitely give you a big gift." "Two big brothers, please don't listen to Ouyang Lulu's nonsense," said Tan Xiu with a forced smile. We're friends, purely friends. Shameless." Sujinan rolled her eyes at Tan Xiu and muttered in a low voice. Although Tan Xiu heard it, he was too lazy to argue with her. He directly pretended that he didn't hear it. He then looked at Ouyang Lulu and loudly said, "Hurry up. If no one wants to compete with me, quickly announce that the Qin Emperor's imperial jade seal is mine." Ouyang Lulu took the microphone and said with a charming smile, "It seems that our Tan Xiu can't wait any longer. Since no one else wants to compete with him, this Qin Emperor imperial jade seal will belong to our family. However, I haven't married into the family yet, so I don't have the financial power yet. So I can only ask the staff to pay for it. Next, let's auction the second item." Amidst the laughter of the audience, the auction of the second item began. More than a dozen items were auctioned one after another. The prices were not very high, and the highest item was only sold for tens of millions. Next, Tan Xiu had already traded with the Situ family's members who came by boat. After he transferred the money through the online bank, he naturally got the Qin Emperor's imperial jade seal. "Brother Tang, this Qin Emperor's imperial jade seal is indeed a treasure handed down from generation to generation. But you don't need to spend 2 billion to buy it, do you?" Li Laozhan came over and looked at the Qin Emperor's imperial jade seal in Tan Xiu's hand and asked. Tan Xiu let out a faint smile and said, money can't buy what I like. Since I've taken a fancy to this item, I think it's worth it no matter how much money I spend. Li Laozhan raised his thumbs up and praised, Brother Tang, you're a man of temperament. I like this character of yours. Money can't buy what I like. It's definitely a wise saying. Wang Daoyuan, who was on the boat next to him, also nodded and praised, that's right. One must live a free and unrestrained life in this world. Buy what one likes and do what one is happy about. Brother Tang may be young, but your thoughts are more thorough than ours. I admire you. You're overpraising me, big brothers, said Tan Xiu with a faint smile. Sujinan was speechless toward Tan Xiu's performance. In her opinion, Tan Xiu's behavior was just a wastrel. Despite her deep resentment toward Tan Xiu, she was still somewhat distressed about the money. It was 2 billion. She was already complacent when her Su family had tens of millions in assets. But now, she didn't expect that Tan Xiu would be so rich to this extent. It must be known. Half a year ago, Tan Xiu was still a poor and foolish student. Not only was his family poor, but he also had a silly character. In less than half a year, he had unexpectedly undergone earth-shaking changes, which she couldn't figure out. However, she also faintly regretted that she treated Tan Xiu so badly in the beginning. If the relationship between the two families could be better, it would be a great fortune for the Su family after Tan Xiu had the ability. Especially when Tan Xiu was actually a descendant of the Tang family in the imperial capital. If her family knew about this in the past, perhaps they wouldn't have treated Tan Xiu and her aunt, Su Lingyun, coldly and humiliated them, but would have flattered them instead, right? This is what a fucking human heart is like. A bitter and astringent feeling arose in Sujinan's heart as she silently lowered her head. Although she still had a lot of hatred toward Tan Xiu, she felt more regret and a heavy reflection. Chapter 504. The auction progressed very slowly, and many items were sought after by many people. Tan Xiu didn't participate anymore. He sat quietly beside Li Laozhan and played with the Qin Emperor's imperial jade seal in his hand. He really couldn't figure out why this ordinary-looking seal made of bronze contained such an enormous amount of power of providence. However, since he couldn't figure it out, he was too lazy to think about it. While he was playing with the Qin Emperor's imperial jade seal, he would occasionally observe Sujinan. Although he didn't like Sujinan, she was his cousin after all. If she could repent like her brother, it would definitely be a pleasant surprise for his mother. 3.5 hours later, it was already 5:30 p.m. The auction was coming to an end. Due to Tan Xiu's mediation, Li Laozhan and Wang Daoyuan gave up on the auction of the Yuchang sword and the other ancient sword. After paying the Situ clan a penalty fee, they took back the two swords. On the platform in the middle of the river, Ouyang Lulu was in high spirits. A blue and white porcelain vase made from the Ming dynasty's official kiln was auctioned off. She took the microphone and smilingly said, "Time flies. I never thought that the auction would come to an end so soon." Next, there were only 3 items left. I believe that these 3 items are definitely rare treasures. Whoever can obtain them would be extremely lucky. The next item to be auctioned is a hairpin made of a special material. Because it has its name carved on it, it is called the 9 Phoenix hairpin. The 9 Phoenix hairpin was very special. It was not an exaggeration to say that it was magical. Let me explain it to everyone. First, its material is special and extremely hard. The owner of the 9 Phoenix hairpin, who entrusted the auction to auction it, used a laser to cut it, but he couldn't damage it at all. Secondly, the wearer can feel the magical effect of being warm in winter and cool in summer. Can you believe it? It's just a hairpin, but it can make people feel cool in the hot summer and warm in the cold winter. Having said that, Ouyang Lulu looked at the pairs of eyes widened and incredulous expressions of the guests and loudly said, "That's right. What I said is all true. I wore the 9 Phoenix hairpin before, and it made me feel very comfortable." The credibility of the organizer, the Situ clan, is also unquestionable. Now, I announce that its starting bid is 20 million, and each bid increment must be no less than 1 million. After saying that, she looked at the crowd below. 20 million. 21 million. The two rich women who had just arrived quoted almost at the same time. On the boat, when Tan Xiu heard the words, 9 phoenix hairpin, from Ouyang Lulu's mouth, his body slightly shook for a moment. When his eyes fell on the hairpin, he immediately stood up. Although his actions had attracted the attention of many people, everyone still focused on the auction. 100 million. Tan Xiu said resolutely. Instantly, the expressions on the faces of the two wealthy women changed. Anger appeared in their eyes. Yang Lan, the big boss of the Buyuan group, had close to 10 billion yuan in assets and countless businesses. It could be said that her net worth had squeezed into the circle of the second-tier rich in the country. Most importantly, she was only 40 years old this year, and this family fortune was all earned by her own hard work. When she saw the 9 phoenix hairpin, she was attracted by the golden hairpin and liked it even more. Therefore, she had made up her mind to buy it even if she had to spend a lot of money. But who would have thought that someone would suddenly appear out of nowhere, and this person turned out to be the famous young divine doctor, Tan Xiu. She knew that Tan Xiu was rich. Otherwise, he wouldn't have bought the first item in the auction for 2 billion yuan. However, she was determined to get the 9 phoenix hairpin. 200 million. An indifferent voice came out of her mouth. 500 million. Tan Xiu bid again. His bid also caused a commotion among the people present. Yang Lan looked at Tan Xiu, stood up and said, Divine Dr. Tang, I'm very curious. You're a dignified man, so why do you want to snatch this 9 phoenix hairpin from a woman like me? This 9 phoenix hairpin was originally mine, said Tan Xiu. I gave it to a junior, but she lost it. Now, it shouldn't be a problem for me to buy it back, right? It's yours. Yang Lan frowned. After a moment of silence, she gritted her teeth and said, 1 billion. I'll give up if you can come up with more than 1 billion. 1 billion. Tan Xiu said resolutely. Yang Lan forced a smile and shook her head as she slowly sat down. In the end, the 9 phoenix hairpin was obtained by Tan Xiu. When he took the 9 phoenix hairpin in his hand, a complicated expression appeared in his eyes for a long time. This 9 phoenix hairpin was indeed refined by him. It was even a gift he gave to his beloved Shui Qingcheng, a top-grade immortal artifact. He couldn't figure out how this thing appeared on Earth and was even obtained by someone else. However, he already had a faint guess in his heart that this matter should be related to Gu Yan. Now that he had bought the 9 phoenix hairpin, he would wait for Gu Yan to wake up and ask her the reason. Brother Tang, was this 9 phoenix hairpin really yours? Li Laozhan leaned over and curiously asked. That's right. Tan Xiu nodded. Not only is it mine, but I also made it myself. It's just that there are some things I can't figure out, so I bought it now. I'll slowly understand some things later. With a strange expression, Li Laozhan said, it seems like there's a story behind it, no? Tan Xiu smiled indifferently and said, there's indeed a story behind it, but it's a private matter. Li Laozhan nodded and no longer talked about this topic. After all, it was not convenient for him to ask about Tan Xiu's private matter. He was just curious that Tan Xiu could actually make a hairpin. Moreover, the craftsmanship was so exquisite. Next. Tan Xiu didn't have much interest in the second auction item. Although the auction price was also hundreds of millions, it had nothing to do with him. On the auction stage, Ouyang Lulu's expression was a bit complicated. She knew that Tan Xiu had something weighing on his mind and even buried a big secret in his heart. Yet, he unexpectedly spent a lot of money to buy a hairpin today, which made her feel sour inside. After all, he was a man and didn't need a hairpin, so this hairpin must be related to a woman. The last item is the dragon-seeking plate. The organizer of the auction once told me that I'm not allowed to explain the dragon-seeking plate during the auction. Therefore, I'll directly announce its base price, 100 million, and each increment must be no less than 10 million. Now, let the bidding begin. After Ouyang Lulu finished speaking, she picked up a 20 to 30 centimeter compass-like object. Dragon-seeking plate. What's that? The finale turned out to be this inexplicable thing. What's its origin? What function does it have? What the hell is the Situ family doing? Is this thing more precious than the Qin Emperor's imperial jade seal? Ridiculous. More than half of the hundreds of rich people present were talking about it. However, when the name of the dragon-searching plate was announced, 20 to 30 elderly people on the hundreds of small boats stood up. Even though the boats were rocking, they all stood perfectly straight. Their eyes were filled with passion as they stared unblinkingly at the dragon-searching plate. A small magic tool. Tan Xiu raised his brows. He was a bit surprised. It had been some time since he returned to Earth, but he had hardly seen a magic tool. Through his perception, he found that this magic tool had the function of seeking dragons and exploring caves. It was definitely a treasure in the eyes of those who dabbled in feng shui. I bid 200 million, 300 million. 500 million, 1 billion. The price of the dragon-seeking plate skyrocketed. In just 4 to 5 minutes, the price had been raised to 4 billion. None of the bidders increased the price by less than 100 million. Li Laozhan, who was sitting next to Tan Xiu, was dumbfounded as he looked at those old men with different expressions. He gently touched Tan Xiu and asked in a low voice, "What's going on, Brother Tang? Who are these people? I've been paying attention to them before. Many of them have never bid for an item in this auction. They're just here to be bystanders. But now, they're competing with each other for some unknown item. Even I'm afraid of the amount of money they're spending. What's going on here?" The dragon-seeking plate is used to find spiritual veins, ominous and spiritual caves, Tan Xiu said lightly. It's very easy to use it to explore ancient tombs. This thing is very precious in the eyes of those who dabble in feng shui. It's almost as precious as their lives. You mean, they're all feng shui masters? Li Laozhan was shocked. I don't know. Tan Xiu shook his head. Li Laozhan gulped and no longer spoke. While he was talking with Tan Xiu, the price of the dragon-seeking plate was raised again to 3 billion. Old Ghost Ju, do you really want to compete with me? An old man looked at the old man who bid 3 billion and angrily asked. I'd rather go bankrupt and lose everything for the dragon-seeking plate, said the old man addressed as Old Ghost Ju resolutely and decisively. Fine, fine, fine. You win. The old man pointed to Old Ghost Ju and finally sat down with an unwilling expression. Old Ghost Ju then looked at the other two old men who were still trying to compete with him and said in a deep voice, You can increase the price as much as you want, but I must get this dragon-seeking plate no matter how much you bid. We've known each other for many years and you should know how important this dragon-seeking plate is to me. The two old men exchanged glances and one of them unwillingly said, I'll bid 1 billion. I'll give up if your bid is higher than this number. 2 billion. Old Ghost Ju said again. The two old men fell into silence for a moment and then sat down. They also hoped to get the dragon-seeking plate, but they also knew that they couldn't compare with Old Ghost Ju in terms of financial resources. They even knew that this dragon-seeking plate was the heirloom of the Zhu family more than 200 years ago. Compete? They could compete for it. If they joined hands, they could definitely suppress Old Ghost Ju in terms of financial resources. But they were well aware that once they did so, they would become enemies with Old Ghost Ju and would be watched by the Zhu family at all times in the future. Today, I present the third chapter. My ranking has fallen sharply. I beg for monthly votes to support me. Chapter 505. The bidding for the last auction item, the dragon-searching plate, was very fierce. The price kept rising and was finally bought by the old man surnamed Zhu with a sky-high price of 3.2 billion yuan. This year's Imperial City auction had officially come to an end. Tan Shou didn't participate in the bidding for the dragon searching plate because he could have as many low-level magic tools as he wanted. There was no need for him to spend a lot of money to buy them. He was even confident that he would be able to refine such low-level magic tools when his cultivation was further improved. However, the emergence of the dragon searching plate made him see a business opportunity. Such a low-level magic tool could be sold at a high price of 3.2 billion yuan. He silently pondered whether he should wait for his strength to improve and refine dozens of magic tools to be auctioned. On the boat, Li Laozhan grabbed Tan Shou's shoulder and smilingly said, "Brother Tang, let's leave since the auction is over. I'm not interested in the banquet prepared by the Situ family." Wang Daoyuan shot him a look and smilingly said, "Brother Li is right. The Situ family will host a banquet to entertain the guests who participated in the black market auction. However, only a few pure businessmen will participate in this kind of occasion. Those who stay to attend the banquet are all strange and eccentric people." Strange and eccentric people? Tan Shou's expression moved and he suddenly said, "Two brothers, I've just bought 2 items and I've spent almost all my money. Since someone is treating us tonight, let's save some money. I'll present Buddha with borrowed flowers. Let's drink at the banquet. What do you think? Of course, I'll bring God's nectar. There are 2 boxes of it in the trunk of my car. We'll drink 1 box tonight and take the other one with us when Brother Wang leaves." Wang Daoyuan's expression moved and he smilingly said, "God's nectar is the most precious gift nowadays. It seems like I've made a big profit today since I can get a box of it. Thanks a lot, Brother Tang. Then let's stay and attend the banquet arranged by the Situ family tonight." Li Laozhan shrugged and smilingly said, "Since you're willing to stay, then I'll naturally do as I please. Brother Wang, although we had some conflicts before, it didn't affect us too much and we didn't suffer any losses. So, I think we'll get to know each other after a fight. Let's drink a few cups tonight." "All right, I'll accompany you to the end." Wang Daoyuan laughed loudly. A small boat rowed through the narrow river passage. Ouyang Lulu, dressed in red, stood on the bow with a smile on her face. When the small boat approached Tan Shou's boat, she directly stepped on the bow and jumped to Tan Shou's side. "My, Ouyang Lulu's eyesight is indescribable. If I had to use a word to describe it, it would be amazing. Darling, I just found out that you're really resourceful. You can be seen in all kinds of big scenes." Ouyang Lulu skillfully held Tan Shou's wrist and said with a smile, "Can you stop blowing your own trumpet?" Tan Shou shook his head and laughed. "Let's talk about something serious. Why did you come to the capital? And he even became the host and auctioneer of the Situ clan's auction." Ouyang Lulu proudly said, "I, Ouyang Lulu, have magical abilities and boundless magical power. My fame has spread all over the country, no, it should be the whole world. The Situ clan's patriarch has good eyesight, so he naturally begged me to be the host and auctioneer of the auction. Do you believe that I won't ignore you if you keep being so narcissistic?" Tan Shou pretended to be angry. Ouyang Lulu quickly waved her hand and said with a charming smile, "No, no, no. You really have no sense of humor. The current patriarch of the Situ clan, Situ Boyang, is my mother's godfather, so he's also my god-grandfather. In any case, our family's villa in Shanghai has opened for business, so I don't need to worry about the management, so I came to the capital." Tan Shou suddenly understood and said with a smile, "Then, when are you going back to Shanghai?" "Tomorrow morning." Ouyang Lulu said. "That's right, when are you going back? It seems that you're going to start school tomorrow." "Well, I'm going to treat you to a meal tonight," Tan Shou said with a smile. "And I'll hitch a ride with you to Shanghai tomorrow. Is that okay with you?" Ouyang Lulu looked at Li Laozhan before shifting her eyes to Wang Daoyuan and Sujinan. She then nodded and said with a smile, "No problem." but you have to wait for me for a while. I'm going to greet my god-grandfather, and then we can go. Where are we going? Tan Shou asked. Aren't we going to have dinner? Asked Ouyang Lulu. We're staying to attend the Situ family's banquet, Tan Shou said with a smile. Ouyang Lulu looked dazed for a moment before she happily said, That's great. I'll introduce my god-grandfather to you. He knows you and is full of praise for you. Hey, Ouyang Lulu, can you not always say, we and we? Tan Shou was at a loss whether he had to cry or laugh. That's your god-grandfather, it has nothing to do with me. It's all the same, it's all the same. Ouyang Lulu smiled like a flower and waved her hand. She immediately urged the staff to row the boat to the shore. Ouyang Lulu even shamelessly pestered Tan Shou to ride his car and rush to the hotel where the Situ family prepared the banquet. Li Laozhan handed the Yuchang sword he brought to the bodyguards and sent them away. Wang Daoyuan also did the same. After handing the sword to the bodyguards, he took Sujinin and Li Laoshan's car to the hotel. Originally, Sujinin didn't want to go to the banquet, but Wang Daoyuan knew that Sujinin was Tan Shou's cousin. In order to get along better with Tan Shou, he finally made Sujinin compromise. At the Imperial Capital International Hotel. The banquet was held by the Situ family in the banquet hall on the 28th floor. Along with the end of the auction, many guests who participated in the auction had already rushed over. The entire banquet hall was decorated extravagantly. Soft crystal lamps illuminated every corner of the hall, while beautiful waiters and waitresses served wine and snacks on the dining tables. What surprised every guest who arrived was that there were 2 bottles of God's nectar on each table. Next to the banquet hall, in a luxurious room, Situ Boyang was quietly reading the documents. He was over 60 years old, yet he was full of spirit and had a ruddy complexion. In front of him, a middle-aged man and a woman stood quietly with a smile on their faces. Dad, Lulu's performance is good. Her gift of eloquence has finally been shown. Therefore, the auction held by the Situ family has auctioned many items at very high prices, much higher than what we originally expected. Situ Chao waited for Situ Boyang to read the documents and reported with a smile. It's indeed very good. Situ Boyang nodded with satisfaction. Ah, that's right. You're all back. Where's Lulu? Situ Chao forced a wry smile and said, Dad, Lulu saw her sweetheart. The auction has just ended and she went to look for him. Tan Shou. Situ Boyang's expression moved and asked, could it be that the young divine Dr. Tan Shou also participated in the auction held by our family? Situ Chao nodded and said, that's right. He also bought 2 items at a high price, with a total value of 3.1 billion. 2 items? Situ Boyang was surprised. Could it be the Qin Emperor's Imperial Jade Seal and the 9 Phoenix hairpin? The total value of these 2 items is exactly 3.1 billion. Yeah, it's these 2 items, said Situ Chao with a smile. Situ Boyang nodded and smilingly said, I met your uncle Ouyang in Jingmen Island a few days ago and heard a lot about Tan Shou from him. He's an amazing young man. He's indeed amazing, especially the magnificent Tang Corporation he founded. Its future development potential is simply enviable. Situ Chao said, further, he's also a divine doctor, which is beyond my expectation. Lulu has always had her eyes set on the top of her head. If this Tan Shou isn't good enough, I'm afraid it would be difficult for him to get her favor. Situ Boyang nodded and said, you'll get in touch with this Tan Shou later. If he's really good, get closer to him. Situ Chao hesitated and said, Dad, but his identity. Situ Boyang waved and said, I know he's a member of the Tang family and his identity is very sensitive. But if our family wants to survive in the imperial capital, it's bound to be closer to some other families. Although the Tang family has been declining in recent years, a starving camel is still bigger than a horse. Once an outstanding talent emerges in the Tang family's offspring, I believe it's not impossible to revive the family's glory. Compared to the Tang family, the Yao family is too powerful. Even if our family tries to get close to them, I'm afraid, forget it. Just do as I say. Situ Chow was silent for a moment and slowly said, Dad, do you want to get involved in the power struggle between the various forces in the country? I won't get involved, said Situ Boyang lightly. Situ Chow was puzzled and asked, then what do you mean? Ouyang Lulu is my adopted granddaughter. The Ouyang family approves of the man she likes. Is it necessary for us to reject her? Do we need to avoid arousing suspicion? There's also Tan Xiu's identity as a divine doctor. If we deliberately keep a distance from him, that would be a problem. Do you understand? Situ Chow was a smart man and instantly understood his father's meaning. Although the Situ family wanted to get closer to the Tang family, it was also justifiable. After all, Ouyang Lulu and Tan Xiu had a relationship, as well as Tan Xiu's identity as a divine doctor. Even if getting close to him would make many people annoyed, so what? After thinking it through, Situ Chow nodded and said, I know what to do, Dad. In the banquet hall. After Tan Xiu, Li Laozhan, Wang Daoyuan, and Ouyang Lulu arrived, many people immediately came forward to greet them. Although Li Laozhan and Wang Daoyuan's identities were unusual, those who were qualified to come here had extraordinary statuses. They came to greet them mainly because of Tan Xiu. Although some of them already knew that Tan Xiu was a descendant of the Tang family in the imperial capital, more people cared about Tan Xiu's identity as a divine doctor. After all, who wouldn't suffer from illness and disasters in their lives? Having an acquaintance with a divine doctor was only good for them. Chapter 506. Although Tan Xiu didn't like this kind of social interaction, he came with a purpose today. Therefore, after exchanging greetings, he led Ouyang Lulu, Li Laozhan, and Wang Daoyuan to a remote corner and sat down in front of a table. Tan Xiu, why do you look like you're suffering while exchanging greetings with others? Ouyang Lulu smiled and moved closer to Tan Xiu's side. I really hate this kind of greetings without any substance. Tan Xiu said with a helpless expression. Maybe people will forget who you are after talking for a while. Even if they remember you, it may be troublesome to get it. Having a purposeful relationship is definitely not as good as having a pure bosom friend. That's right. Li Laozhan clapped and smilingly said, Brother Tang's words really hit the bottom of my heart. When we first met in Saipan, we didn't know each other's details at all. We didn't even know each other's names. It's just that the other party is very interesting, and after getting to know each other, we felt that we hit it off. At the side. Wang Daoyuan's expression moved and he quickly asked, Brother Li, you said that you and Brother Tang met in Saipan. I heard that there's a big project going on there in the last 2 months. Could it be? It has nothing to do with me. Li Laozhan waved his hand and smilingly said. Although I also got the news, my business hasn't reached overseas yet. Nodding with a thoughtful expression, Wang Daoyuan said, I once sent some people to investigate after I heard about the big project over there. Unfortunately, I didn't find much news. I only heard that someone bought an island and rebuilt it. What a pity. Such a big project, yet I didn't get it. Otherwise, I would have really made a fortune. Li Laozhan glanced at Tan Xiu with a strange expression and fell into silence. Ouyang Lulu, who was sitting next to Tan Xiu, once again leaned toward Tan Xiu and spoke in a voice that only the two of them could hear. Tan Xiu, are they talking about the island you bought? It should be. Tan Xiu also replied in a very low voice. But I don't want this matter to be known by many people, so don't talk too much. Got it. Ouyang Lulu smiled. The banquet hosted by the Situ family was very casual. As the host, the patriarch of the Situ family, Situ Boyang, personally came. After greeting many of his old friends, he was dragged to a table by a few of them. As the dishes were served, the scene was very lively with good wine and delicacies. Tan Xiu was a man of few words. Even though the people at his table all had the intention to make friends with him, he simply responded to them. He was concerned about Situ Boyang, the patriarch of the Situ clan. Tan Xiu, I'll take you to toast to my god-grandfather. Ouyang Lulu suddenly put down her chopsticks and said with a smile. Tan Xiu said with a faint smile, since he's your elder, then let's go meet him. It just so happens that I also want to see the Situ clan's patriarch. Ouyang Lulu asked with a strange expression, you want to see God-grandpa? What is it? Tan Xiu smiled faintly and said, you'll know later. Let's go. As the two of them got up and came to Situ Boyang's table, Ouyang Lulu pulled Tan Xiu's arm and smilingly said, God-grandpa, Tan Xiu and I are here to toast you. Situ Boyang turned his head and looked at Ouyang Lulu before his eyes immediately fell on Tan Xiu. After carefully observing him for a while, he nodded with satisfaction and smilingly said, a very good young man, Tan Xiu. Since you're my god-granddaughter's sweetheart, you should get closer to our Situ family later. We'll be closer, Grandpa Situ, Tan Xiu said with a smile. Let me toast you with this cup of wine. Situ Boyang picked up the wine cup and drank it in one gulp with a smile. He then clicked his tongue twice and sighed, the god's nectar produced by your magnificent Tang Corp is simply a bejeweled nectar. The taste is really memorable. Tan Xiu, for the sake of our family's Lulu, can you open the back door for this old man and sell some to me? You must be joking, Grandpa. Tan Xiu said with a smile. If you really like it, I'll tell Kang Xia to send some to you later. Good, good, good. It's really good. Situ Boyang laughed. Grandpa Situ, shall we have a chat after the banquet is over? Tan Xiu said. Situ Boyang stared blankly for a moment before he immediately nodded and smilingly said, all right. You and Lulu can come together and we'll talk about family matters. All right, we won't disturb you then. Tang Xiu complied and then brought Ouyang Lulu back to the table where they had just eaten. Inwardly, he was thinking about the deal with Situ Boyang later. He might not have cared about the existence of the Situ family before, but after today's auction, he realized that he was wrong. The Situ family was a force of the occult sect and had a very close relationship with many occult sect members in the country. He should be able to get many things that were very suitable for him as long as he went through the Situ family. For example, the Situ family was able to take out the Imperial Qin Emperor's Imperial Jade Seal and the 9 Phoenix hairpin in this auction, which showed that the Situ family was very powerful. Perhaps, the Situ family would be able to get some good things in the future. The banquet ended. Tan Xiu and Ouyang Lulu escorted Li Laozhan and Wang Daoyuan out of the hotel and then went to a luxury suite on the 28th floor of the hotel. At this time, Situ Boyang was talking with 2 old men. Upon seeing Tan Xiu and Ouyang Lulu's arrival, he waved his hand and said, Tan Xiu, you're Lulu's sweetheart, so you're not an outsider. So, please wait for a while. We need to talk about something important. We'll talk again later. All right. Tan Xiu complied but didn't leave. Instead, he and Ouyang Lulu sat on the sofa in the innermost side. On the sofa in the center of the hall, Situ Boyang extinguished the cigarette in his hand and slowly said, we must find the tomb map. We're only missing one piece. As long as we find it, I'll go there myself. You must also be prepared. This is definitely a big job for us. One of them, a lean old man in a Chinese tunic suit, nodded and said, don't worry. We've actually prepared for it. Unfortunately, we have no way to determine the specific location. But, Brother Situ, is your body capable of performing such a dangerous acupoint sealing mission? You 2 old geezers can do it, so why can't I? Situ Boyang proudly said. The 3 of us have searched hundreds of tombs, but we've never encountered an ancient tomb where we can't determine its origin and who's buried there. We absolutely can't let go of such an opportunity. The lean old man nodded and sighed, yeah. It's a pity that the earth-drilling mouse died. That old geezer was selfish. If he had called the 3 of us earlier, maybe he wouldn't have died. Although he stole the Imperial Qin Emperor's Imperial Jade Seal from the ancient tomb, I really want to see the flying sword he mentioned before his death. Let's wait for the news. Even if we can't get the third tomb map, we must follow the general direction to find it. I believe that there must be a big secret hidden in the ancient Zong mountain range, said Situ Boyang slowly. Not far away. Tan Xiu's heart slightly moved as he listened to their conversation. A flying sword? Could it be a flying sword? But there's no one controlling the flying sword, so it should be a sword array. This kind of sword array should be very powerful. Could it be arranged by some powerful person? As Tan Xiu thought up to there, he immediately got up and came to the front of the three old men, saying, I just heard you say that there's a flying sword. I might know something about this situation. The two old men furrowed their brows and revealed displeasure in their eyes. Situ Boyang, however, raised his brows and smilingly asked, since you said you know something, then tell us about it, Tan Xiu. A flying sword is the legendary flying sword of a cultivator, said Tan Xiu. If there's a flying sword in the ancient tomb you mentioned, but there's no living person inside, it means that someone has arranged a sword array with flying swords in the ancient tomb. And the person who can arrange such a sword array is definitely a powerhouse among cultivators, so the power of this sword array can't be underestimated. A sword array. The three old men were moved. They didn't expect that Tan Xiu actually knew about the existence of cultivators. Situ Boyang pointed to the empty sofa at the side and said, Tan Xiu, you know about cultivators, flying swords, and sword arrays, so you should know more about them, right? Tell us. After sitting down, Tan Xiu said, cultivators have mysterious and unfathomable power and terrifying means. I'm sure you all know that I bought the Qin Emperor's Imperial Jade Seal at a high price, but have you ever wondered why I bought it? Situ Boyang pondered for a moment and said with a serious expression, don't keep us guessing, Tan Xiu. Get to the point. As a matter of fact, the Qin Emperor's Imperial Jade Seal is a magic tool, a very powerful one at that. Tan Xiu lightly smiled. I can't tell you its specific function, though. But what I can say is that I know a lot about magic tools and cultivators. I even have a way to break that sword array. Situ Boyang and the other two old men's complexions drastically changed. Shocked expressions could be seen in their eyes as they stared at Tan Xiu and didn't speak for a long time. Eventually. You said that the Qin Emperor's Imperial Jade Seal is a magic tool, Tan Xiu? Asked Situ Boyang in a deep voice. Also, you said that you can break that sword array? That's right. Tan Xiu nodded. So you're a cultivator? Asked Situ Boyang quickly. I may not be a cultivator, but I know a lot about them. Tan Xiu shook his head. Of course, you can also consider me a cultivator since some of my abilities are comparable to cultivators. What abilities do you have? Asked the skinny old man hurriedly. For example, I have a deep attainment in arrays, and I also have a high attainment in making talismans. Tan Xiu lightly smiled. Arrays? Talismans? The three old men looked at Tan Xiu and were speechless at the moment. They knew that Tan Xiu was a divine doctor, but never did they expect that Tan Xiu was actually proficient in arrays and could even make talismans. How did you learn it, Tan Xiu? Asked Situ Boyang. I used to read books, and I like all kinds of books. Tan Xiu lightly smiled. Because of my good luck, I obtained a few books, which contained medical knowledge, array formations, and talismans. After many years of research, I finally learned some skills. Although the monthly votes have been slipping, Quiet Night has decided to update 3 chapters today, one of which is a supplementary chapter. Also, Quiet Night will release 10 chapters in 3 days starting tomorrow. As for the reason, the immortal world baby knows. Chapter 507. Situ Boyang and the other two observed Tan Xiu's expression. They could see that Tan Xiu looked calm and didn't seem to be lying. All kinds of thoughts kept churning in their minds. The three of them had known each other for more than 50 years, so they were very familiar with each other. As they pondered and exchanged glances, the three tacitly understood each other's thoughts. Situ Boyang stroked his chin and said, Tan Shou, since you're proficient in arrays, I wonder if you're interested in going with us since there's a sword array in the ancient tomb we're going to explore. Don't worry, we'll count all the harvest in the ancient tomb to you. I'm indeed interested in exploring. It's very exciting and fun. Tan Shou lightly smiled. Since the three of you don't mind, then I'll go with you when the time comes. I can't guarantee anything else, but if we encounter an array in the ancient tomb, I'll crack it. As for the talismans, I'll also prepare them in advance. Tan Shou, can you show us? Asked the lean old man. How? Asked Tan Shou with a smile. We can't be sure whether you're really proficient in arrays or not, but you said you can make talismans. How about you make one tonight and let us see it? Said the lean old man. I need a brush, ink, and paper, said Tan Shou without hesitation. The paper is yellow paper, and the ink is cinnabar ink. The three of you are old and you often go to unclean places, so it's inevitable that evil chi will invade your bodies. I'll make 3 evil-repelling talismans to ensure that you won't be invaded by evil chi in the future. The 3 of them were overjoyed upon hearing it and their attitude toward Tan Shou turned a bit closer. Evil-repelling talismans. It was the most important thing in the strange doors. Although each of their families had evil-repelling talismans handed down, the number of evil-repelling talismans in their families had been reduced to the extreme with the passage of time. For example, the Situ family only had 3 evil-repelling talismans left. The other 2 families were not as good as the Situ family. Although it was very late now, the Situ family could easily find what Tan Shou needed with their ability. Ouyang Lulu, on the other hand, sat at the side and didn't speak. At this moment, her eyes had already been replaced by extraordinary splendor. Even though she felt that she already had a great understanding of Tan Shou, she still never imagined that Tan Shou was actually able to craft talismans. He could even walk into the circle of the elders of the strange doors. Outstanding. She felt that Tan Shou was simply too outstanding. He was simply perfect and flawless. When the brush, ink, paper, and inkstone were brought to Tan Shou, she and the other 3 old men sat quietly at the side, watching Tan Shou concentrate on drawing the strange characters. His painting technique was as smooth as moving clouds and flowing water. His brushstrokes were like dragons and snakes, and his words were like dancing dragons and dancing phoenixes. Although they looked extremely complicated, there was an indescribable charm to them. Half an hour later, Tan Shou made 3 evil-warding talismans. The talisman looked ordinary, but when Situ Boyang and the other 2 held it in their hands, they could feel a chill in their hands. That's right, it's an evil-warding talisman. Situ Boyang's eyes lit up, and his eyes were rippling with excitement. The lean old man's skinny palms slightly trembled while holding the evil-warding talismans. His wrinkled face was full of excitement as he muttered to himself, "It's been 100 years. I've never heard of anyone being able to make these evil-warding talismans. The number of people in our strange doors is very small, and the things passed down by our ancestors are even fewer. I thought that this kind of evil-warding talisman would only be used once, but I never thought that our strange doors' evil-warding talismans could be made even more." Another old man with a sarcoma on his forehead nodded repeatedly and said, "That's right. With these evil-warding talismans, Divine Dr. Tang, no, Grandmaster Tang can be considered as a member of our strange doors. The 3 of you are Tang Shou's seniors, so it's reasonable to say that you know more than me," said Tang Shou with a smile. "If there's anything I don't understand in the future, I hope you can give me some pointers." Situ Boyang moved his eyes away from the evil-warding talisman with difficulty. His eyes then fell on Tan Shou's face and said with a serious expression, "Can we make a deal, Tan Shou?" Tan Shou's expression moved and asked, "You mean, you want to make a deal with me with these evil-warding talismans?" Situ Boyang heavily nodded and said, "I'm willing to buy these evil-warding talismans for 50 million. I don't need a lot of them. 100 is enough, 100. Tan Shou's mouth fiercely twitched a few times. 50 million for one evil-warding talisman, and 100 of them would be 5 billion. How could this thing be so valuable in the eyes of these strange doors people? The lean old man also said without hesitation, my Jin Men clan needs 50 of them. The price is also set at 50 million each. What do you think, Grandmaster Tang? I also need 50 of them. Another old man said in a deep voice. Tan Shou stared blankly at the three of them. A wry smile filled his heart. Had he known earlier that he could make so much money by relying on these evil-warding talismans, he wouldn't have bothered to do business. It must be noted that this evil-warding talisman was not the only one he could make. With his current cultivation, he could also make dozens of other talismans. If each of them could be sold at such a price and in such quantity, he would probably become one of the richest people in the country, wouldn't he? Tan Shou looked at the lean old man and the old man with a sarcoma on his forehead and asked, how should I address these two seniors? Jin Men Tian. Li Yuan. Senior Jin Men, Senior Li, said Tan Shou. Give me 3 days and I'll definitely hand over 50 evil-warding talismans to each of your clans. Jin Men Tian clapped his hands and smilingly said, great. That's great. Grandmaster Tang, let's exchange our contact information. I'll prepare the money when the time comes. Me too. Li Yuan was pleasantly surprised. All right. Tan Shou said with a smile. At the side, Situ Boyang looked at Tan Shou in a daze. Suddenly, he seemed to realize something and said, two brothers, the matter we discussed has been decided. We'll immediately set off to the ancient tomb after we find the third map. If we can't find it before the end of December, we'll rely on the 2 maps and the general direction to find it. No problem. I'll inform Grandmaster Tang when the time comes. Jin Men Tian nodded. If so, then I won't keep you two for long. Situ Boyang nodded. Jin Men Tian and Li Yuan exchanged glances and tacitly got up to bid farewell. In the living room of the luxury suite, only Tan Shou and Ouyang Lulu were left. Situ Boyang returned to Tan Shou and took a seat, saying, Tan Shou, you said you wanted to talk to me before. What is it? Tan Shou said with a smile, Grandpa Situ, your Situ family has been running the imperial capital's black market auction for so many years. You should have some special channels to find those strange and bizarre things. Can we discuss this? If your Situ family can find those things and let me pick them in advance, I'm willing to spend a lot of money to buy them. Of course, if you don't want to, we can also cooperate in other ways. Situ Boyang squinted his eyes and asked, tell me about other ways of cooperation. For example, exchanging items, said Tan Shou. You mean, you want to use the evil-repelling talisman to exchange for the things you like? Asked Situ Boyang. Not only the evil-repelling talisman, but I can also take out several other talismans. Tan Shou shook his head. For example, the ice talisman, the raging flame talisman, the lightning talisman, and the healing talisman. Situ Boyang suddenly got up and exclaimed with a horrified face, you can make so many talismans? You, what kind of ancient books did you get? You actually. You don't need me to tell you what kind of ancient books I got, said Tan Shou with a smile. I just want to ask you if you're willing to cooperate with me like I said. Situ Boyang gasped a few times and resolutely said, no problem. As long as you can really take out these talismans, the Situ family's treasure vault will be open to you. Then let's happily decide, said Tan Shou with a smile. As for the evil-repelling talismans you want to buy, I can promise to sell 100 of them to you. But I have a condition. Say it. Situ Boyang's eyes turned red at the moment. His Situ family was one of the occult families, and they needed these magical talismans very much. At this moment, he would agree even if Tan Shou asked for his life. Because once the Situ family could get so many talismans, it would definitely make the Situ family's strength soar and give more benefits to the future generations. You should already know that I spent 3.1 billion to buy the Qin Emperor's Imperial Jade Seal and the 9 Phoenix Hairpin, said Tan Shou. The total value of 100 evil-repelling talismans is 5 billion. I only need the Situ family to return the 3.1 1 billion to me and let me pick 2 things from your Situ family's treasure vault. Then, our deal will be considered complete. Situ Boyong stared blankly. After pondering for a while, he shook his head and said, Tan Shio, perhaps you don't know what's in our Situ family's treasure vault. But I can tell you that the value of many things inside can hardly be measured with money. Cold Ice Talisman, Raging Flame Talisman, Lightning Talisman, and Healing Talisman, said Tan Shio. Add 5 talismans for each of the 4. I want to choose 3 items. Situ Boyang's complexion constantly changed as countless thoughts churned inside his mind. The conditions put forward by Tan Shio caught him off guard. He was excited and nervous at the same time. But more than anything else, he could see that the Situ family was about to move towards glory, and their status in the occult doors would rise steadily in the future. Could he agree to it? If he didn't, let alone the Cold Ice Talisman, Raging Flame Talisman, Lightning Talisman, and Healing Talisman, he wouldn't even be able to get the Evil Repelling Talisman. But if he agreed to it, then those things in the treasure vault, especially those things, would be picked by Tan Shio, a few minutes later. Situ Boyong looked up as if he had made up his mind. He looked at Tan Shio and said, I agree, but you must promise me one thing. Please say it. Tan Shio was delighted inwardly. Since Jin Men Tian and Li Yuan already know that you can make evil-repelling talismans, then forget it, said Situ Boyong. But you must never let them know about the other 4 talismans. If you want to sell those 4 talismans, you must go through our Situ family. Our Situ family will take a 10% commission for every transaction in the future. Deal. Tan Shio clapped his hands and said with a smile. Don't forget to throw down your monthly ticket, dear. Chapter 508. As the saying goes, people are in high spirits when encountering happy events. Tan Shio was in a very good mood. After participating in the imperial capital's auction fair, he had a deal with the Situ family's patriarch, Situ Boyong. His harvest was quite good, which made him very excited. He even began to look forward to seeing how many good things were in the Situ family's treasure vault. On the way to the Situ family's land, Tan Shio turned on the music in the car, letting the wonderful notes wander in the car. Tan Shio, I'm really happy for you. Sitting on the front seat, Ouyang Lulu spoke with a smile on the corner of her mouth. Her eyes sparkled with undisguised adoration. Tan Shio glanced at her and lightly smiled, I'm actually very happy, but I'm afraid I'll be doused with cold water later. Are you talking about the Situ family's treasure vault? Ouyang Lulu laughed. That's right. Tan Shio nodded. I gave up billions of wealth to pick 3 good things from the Situ family's treasure vault. If I don't get something satisfactory in the end, I'll lose a lot. Ouyang Lulu clenched her fists and seriously said, Tan Shio, I think you can rest assured about this issue. The Situ family's heritage is very deep. To be honest, even I can't figure out the Situ family's history. Maybe it's 100 years, maybe a few hundred years, or even 1,000 years. In short, their family has always stood tall, and their family members have a lot of wealth. I'm sure there must be some good things in their family's treasure vault. I hope so. Tan Shio lightly smiled. After driving for nearly an hour, more than a dozen cars slowly entered a manor. Tan Shio learned from the GPS that this place was no longer within the 4th Ring Road. However, in the imperial capital, where every inch of land was worth its weight in gold, the Situ family's wealth and power should not be underestimated. There are a lot of people who know martial arts. Even though it was late at night, after the Land Rover SUV entered the Situ family's manor, Tan Shio could still see a lot of security guards scattered at the intersections of the internal roads. At the same time, he would occasionally see patrols passing by. These people didn't carry electric batons or anything like that. Instead, they carried cold weapons like knives and swords on their backs. If they hadn't known that this was the Huaxia of the new era, they would have thought they were in the Jianghu era where ancient heroes roamed the land. Tan Shio scanned them with his spiritual consciousness and found that these people all had daggers or firearms on their waists. Tan Xiu, the Sita clan's villa is not bad, right? This villa was the size of 2 regular football fields, and there were a total of 12 luxurious villas of different styles. We are walking inside, and the innermost luxurious villa is the Situ family's conference building. Ouyang Lulu was very familiar with the Situ family and slowly introduced it to Tan Xiu. When the convoy split up at a fork in the road, Si Tuchao had already gotten out of one of the cars and pointed at the car that was driving ahead. After Tan Xiu got the hint, he continued to drive forward and soon arrived at the innermost part of the Sita clan. At the center of the Sita clan's villa was not a fountain square, but a European-style luxury villa. The 3-story luxury villa covered a large area and was surrounded by a 2-meter-high wall with an electric fence. In front of the only big iron gate in the south, 4 strong security guards were seriously standing guard. Get off! After Tan Xiu parked the car, he glanced at Ouyang Lulu and said. At this moment, Situ Boyang also got off the car. Seeing Tan Xiu and Ouyang Lulu approaching, he faintly smiled and said, Lulu, the Situ clan has a rule that outsiders are not allowed to enter unless it's a special and important matter. You may be my adopted granddaughter, but we can't break the ancestral rule. You stay outside. Tan Xiu, come with me. Ouyang Lulu understood Situ Boyang's words since her Ouyang family also had such an important place that outsiders were forbidden to enter. After nodding, she waved and said, Tan Xiu, I'll go to my place first. It's a villa in front. Remember to find me after you're done with your business. All right. Tan Xiu nodded. As Ouyang Lulu left, Situ Boyang smilingly said, Come with me, Tan Xiu. I hope you'll always keep what you've seen and heard in my Situ family in your heart. I understand. Tan Xiu gently nodded. As the electric iron gate slowly opened, Situ Boyang led Tan Xiu inside. Inside the courtyard, there were still 4 stalwart men standing guard. Tan Xiu found that there were at least 20 experts inside and outside this luxurious villa. Interesting. There's even an elevator in this 3-story villa. Tan Xiu followed Situ Boyang to the elevator door on the left side of the hall and said with a faint smile. Situ Boyang faintly smiled. As the elevator door opened and the 2 of them stood inside, he reached out and pressed the button below the 3-story display. Almost automatically, the place that couldn't be seen before suddenly lit up with a red light showing the number -1 floor. Additionally, Situ Boyang leaned toward an LCD screen to verify his retina before the elevator began to descend. Creak, as the elevator stopped and the door slowly opened, a long corridor appeared in front of Tan Xiu. After the 2 of them walked out of the elevator, Situ Boyang pointed to the corridor in front and seriously said, This is the Situ family's treasure vault. There are a total of 8 rooms on both sides of the corridor. The 4 rooms on the right side in front are used to store gold, silver, and jewelry, the wealth accumulated by the Situ family for generations. The 4 rooms on the left side are the rare treasures of the Ouyang family. I've ordered people to open the doors of the 8 rooms. You can enter any room at will and pick 3 things you like. Won't you come with me to have a look? Tan Xiu asked with a smile. Situ Boyang forced a smile and said, I won't go with you. I'm afraid that I'll be distressed if you pick something good. I'll wait for you here. Having said that, he walked to the sofa and directly sat down. Tan Xiu took a deep breath and walked inside. He had spent billions to get this opportunity, so he didn't want to waste his time. At the same time, he also released his spiritual sense. As Situ Boyang said, the 4 rooms on the right side stored a huge amount of gold, silver, and jewelry. The first room on the left side was filled with antiques, calligraphy, and paintings. There were a lot of things in the remaining 3 rooms. After all, each room was 40 to 50 square meters in size. There was a row of cabinets on the walls around the room, with 2 rows of long glass tables in the middle. The things inside were clearly visible under the soft illumination of the light. Huh? Tan Xiu's expression slightly moved. He directly strode into the second room on the left side and deliberately looked around for a few minutes. He constantly observed the things and finally came to the item that had been locked by his spiritual sense. It was an ancient bronze lamp with a rusty surface. It was inconspicuous among the many items in the room. However, Tan Shio keenly observed that there was a Buddhist saraira inside the ancient bronze lamp. This Buddhist saraira had been specially refined by someone. Even though it had been in the ancient bronze lamp for many years, the spiritual power inside it was still intact. What surprised Tan Shio even more was that someone had carved a Buddhist cultivation method on the Buddhist saraira. Although the method is ordinary, it is indeed not easy to achieve this step on earth, where there are no immortals. The grade of this ancient bronze lamp should be at the level of a pseudo-immortal artifact. It seems that there were indeed powerful cultivators on earth. It is even possible that there were immortals who ascended from earth in the immortal world. Tan Shio pondered for a moment and put away the ancient bronze lamp. Although he still didn't know what effect this ancient bronze lamp had, it was still a pseudo-immortal artifact. If he could make use of it, it might be of great help to him in the future. In the corridor outside the elevator, Situbule, who was sitting on the sofa and smoking, suddenly moved his ears. He had put on a headset at the moment, and the sound coming from it made his expression become strange. The ancient bronze lamp? Why would Tan Shio choose such an item? I have studied the ancient bronze lamp. Although there is a spherical thing inside, because the mouth of the lamp is too small, the thing inside can't be taken out at all. The ancient bronze lamp is very hard and belongs to the level of an antique, so it was left in the family's treasure house. Could it be that Tan Shio knows the origin of this ancient bronze lamp? Situbule frowned as he thought about it. His heart that was hanging in the balance was a lot more relaxed, because the ancient bronze lamp was not among the most precious treasures that he cared about. In other words, even if Tan Shio chose more precious things later, he could only choose two. Soon, Tan Shio came out of the second room on the left. After entering the third room, he glanced at the right corner and then looked around casually. The Situ family really stored a lot of rare treasures. Tan Shio secretly estimated that if the rare treasures in any room were to be sold, they could sell for a good price. If the Situ family wanted to, they could exchange all the things in this treasure house for RMB. The total value would definitely make countless rich people tremble, and they might even become the richest people in the country. TSK, they even have an imperial edict. This imperial edict was personally written by the founder of the Ming dynasty, and it is a good thing with a big seal. If this thing was placed outside, it would be a national treasure, wouldn't it? Tan Shio shook his head. As a smile swept across his face, his footsteps gradually moved toward the right corner inside. He even became a lot more excited in his heart. However, no matter how excited he was, he did not want to show it, because he clearly found that there were extremely hidden surveillance cameras in every room. Therefore, he knew that his every move inside was probably being monitored by the people of the Situ family. There are still 90 essentials in the book review section, and 500 points will be rewarded. Please leave active comments in the book review section. On the last day, I plan to distribute all the essentials and points. Finally, I urgently need monthly votes. Chapter 509. The mouth of the green guanine vase was sealed by a beautifully carved jade stopper without the slightest gap. The surface of the guanine vase was engraved with strange characters, which were used by many cultivators with ordinary cultivation to engrave talismans. What made Tan Shio excited was not the characters on the surface, but what was inside the jade bottle. It was a drop of golden, glistening yellow liquid, the size of a marble, lying quietly inside. After holding the guanine vase in his hand, Tan Shio's expression changed slightly because he keenly sensed that this small guanine vase weighed hundreds of kilograms. If it was an ordinary person, even if they exerted all their strength, they would not be able to lift it. Huh? Tan Shio frowned. To his surprise, he could not pull the jade stopper at the mouth of the vase with his strength of 10,000 kilograms. After observing for a moment, Tanshio finally realized that the runes engraved on the surface of the vase actually formed an array formation on the surface. This array formation was very strange. Even though he was experienced and knowledgeable, he did not know its function without in-depth understanding. This is it. Because of time constraints, Tanshio did not immediately study it. Instead, he directly put it away and walked to the fourth room on the left. Although he did not find anything special with spiritual power fluctuations in his divine sense, he still carefully observed for a long time. However, to his disappointment, he did not find anything special. Finally, his eyes fell on a golden dragon head. This dragon head was very big, made of gold, and the carving was even more exquisite. Tanshio moved it and found that it weighed more than 200 kilograms. In the corridor outside the elevator, Situ Boyong, who was sitting on the sofa, had a smile on his face. He was very satisfied with the second item that Tanshio chose. Although he also felt that the guanine vase was very strange, with a small bottle weighing hundreds of kilograms, their Situ family had studied it for 7 or 8 generations, but no one had been able to study it thoroughly. Therefore, he did not feel much heartache that the guanine vase was chosen by Tanshio. Patriarch, the third item that Tanshio chose is our family's golden dragon head. The voice of the family member in the monitoring room came from the headset. What? Situ Boyong was stunned, and his expression changed drastically. He instantly jumped up from the sofa and rushed into the corridor. His speed was very fast, and he didn't look like an old man at all. When he rushed into the fourth room on the left and saw Tanshio coming out with the golden dragon head, he immediately shouted, "Tanshio, can we make a deal? You give up this golden dragon head and I'll let you pick 2 more things." Tanshio shook his head and smilingly said, "Grandpa Situ, we've agreed before that you won't stop me no matter what I choose. Now that the 3 items have been chosen, you won't regret it, right?" Situ Boyang's mouth fiercely twitched a few times. He finally looked at the golden dragon head that Tanshio was holding with a distressed expression. After stroking it for a while, he bitterly said, "Although this Situ Boyang is very distressed, I'll never regret my words. The ancestors of the Situ family have spent a great deal of effort and paid a huge price for this golden dragon head. It almost caused the Situ family to be exterminated hundreds of years ago. I never thought that I would lose it in my hands today. Isn't it just a golden dragon head cast from gold?" Tanshio smilingly said. "Your Situ family has a lot of gold. At worst, you can just cast it again. What the hell do you know?" Situ Boyang opened his mouth and finally shook his head with a bitter expression. Tanshio's expression moved and curiously asked, "Grandpa Situ, this golden dragon head is already mine. I've already picked 3 items, so I won't regret it. Can you tell me what's so special about this golden dragon head?" Situ Boyang stared at Tanshio and asked, "Are you really sure, 100% sure?" Replied Tanshio without hesitation. Situ Boyang nodded silently and said, "Legend has it that the Yellow River and Yangtze River converge at the place where the golden dragon incarnates. Later on, for some unknown reason, someone found that place and used a magical method to cut off the dragon's head. The ancestors of the Situ family have been trying their best to find the dragon's body in the converging place after obtaining the golden dragon head. Unfortunately, they haven't been able to find it for hundreds of years. What can we get if we find it?" asked Tanshio curiously. "I don't know if it's true or not, but rumor has it that the dragon head and the dragon's body are connected to restore the golden dragon's full appearance and can save the golden dragon and turn it into a living creature," said Situ Boyang solemnly. "Whoever connects the dragon head and the dragon's body can obtain the golden dragon's recognition and become its master." Cough, cough. Tanshio was at a loss whether he had to cry or laugh as he looked at Situ Boyang and said, "Grandpa Situ, have the Situ family's members been brainwashed by others? How can they believe such absurd rumors? This golden dragon head is completely cast from gold, but the carving is exquisite and lifelike. That's why I don't know if it's true or not," said Situ Boyang with a forced smile. "But everyone in the strange doors agrees with this statement." Because there are countless magical things in the boundless world. If the rumor is false, we'll only be disappointed at most. But if it's true, I believe I don't need to tell you how much benefits our Situ family can get, right? Tan Xiu nodded with a smile and said, all right, this absurd rumor of your Situ family will be interrupted from today onwards. Your family doesn't need to waste money and effort to find it later. I'll take this thing away and give me 10 days to hand over all the talismans I promised you to the Situ family. However, I hope you can send someone to Demonic City to get them when the time comes. Situ Boyang nodded and sighed. Compared to this golden dragon head, I value those talismans more. Since we've agreed on this beforehand, these 3 items are all yours. Just put them here first. I'll send someone to help you carry them out. No need, said Tan Xiu with a smile. Please help me carry the ancient bronze lamp and the guanyin vase. I can carry this golden dragon head. Do you think I can carry that guanyin vase? Situ Boyang forced a smile. Tan Xiu stared blankly for a moment before he couldn't help laughing and said, indeed. This guanyin vase is very strange. I found that it's heavier than this golden dragon head. All right. I'll have to trouble Grandpa Situ to send someone to move this golden dragon head to my car. All right. Situ Boyang replied. 10 minutes later. The 4 stalwart men moved the golden dragon head to Tan Xiu's Land Rover. Since the trunk couldn't fit it, Tan Xiu brutally tore the back seat of the car and put the golden dragon head inside. As for the guanyin vase and the ancient bronze lamp, he quietly put them into his interspatial ring. Tan Xiu, go to Lulu's place. She's waiting for you. Situ Chao had already arrived and was waiting outside the courtyard. With a distressed expression, he looked at the 4 clansmen putting the golden dragon head into Tan Xiu's car. Only then did he try to calm down his mood and squeezed out a smile. With this thing in the car, I don't dare to leave easily. Tan Xiu said with a smile. Anyways, I'll call Lulu and ask her if there's anything else. If there's nothing else, I'll go back first. After saying that, he dialed Ouyang Lulu's number and told her about the golden dragon head. She didn't ask Tan Xiu to go to her place, but told Tan Xiu to be careful on the road. It was already midnight when he returned to the Tang family's ancestral residence. To Tan Xiu's surprise, his grandfather, Tang Guosheng, and his father, Tang Yunda, were still awake. Both of them were sitting on the sofa in the living room and chatting. The fragrance of tea filled every corner of the living room. Grandpa, Dad, you haven't rested yet? After entering the door, Tan Xiu said with a smile. You're going back to Shanghai tomorrow, aren't you? Tang Guosheng said with a smile. That's why we're waiting for you and have a chat with you. That's right, where did you go today? Ding, Tang Xiu's cell phone's ringtone sounded as several text messages were sent at the same time. He didn't hurry to reply to Tang Guosheng. Tan Xiu took out his mobile and looked at it. A strange expression suddenly appeared on his face. It was because he found that 2 huge sums of 2.5 billion had been transferred to his account. Moreover, the remaining 2 short messages were sent by Jin Mentian and Li Yuan. They said that they believed in Tan Xiu's character and transferred the money to him in advance. Tan Xiu looked up and said with a smile, I went to participate in a black market auction and got a good harvest. Tang Guosheng's expression moved and asked, did you participate in the Imperial City's auction held by the Situ family? That's right. Tan Xiu said with a smile. The Situ family has a deep heritage and it's very difficult to estimate their family's strength. It's estimated that even our Tang family is not much stronger than the Situ family. Every few years, they hold an auction in the Imperial City. To put it bluntly, it's a black market auction. Most of the things auctioned are things that can't see the light of day. The reason why the major families in the Imperial City turn a blind eye to the Situ family is because the Situ family is a member of the occult sect. Xiu, I'm very curious. Why did you think of participating in the auction held by the Situ family? Tan Xiu told him about Li Laoshan's request for help. Finally, he said with a smile, I didn't expect that Wang Daoyuan would turn hostility into friendship with Li Laozhan so easily. However, since their matter has been resolved, it can be said that I've accomplished my mission. You did a good job. Tang Guosheng nodded and smilingly said. That's right, you haven't told me what harvest you got today. The Qin Emperor's Imperial Jade Seal and the 9 Phoenix Hairpin. Tan Shou said with a smile. I spent 3.1 billion to buy these things in the auction. What? Tang Guosheng and Tang Yunda looked dull at the same time. 3.1 billion. He actually dared to spend 3.1 billion in an auction. Wasn't this too extravagant? If he could make money, he could spend it. Tang Guosheng suddenly felt that he had made a mistake by handing over 50 billion yuan to his grandson. He spent so much money that even 50 billion wouldn't be enough for him to toss and turn. You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.